first and the second goals here, because the feedback would be important for both our
Right.
course offerings and our extracurricular offerings.
Right.
But we do adjust, we do add, and we do.
We do, definitely.
And let's not leave out those kids who are going to have an oh my God moment when they graduate and they're not going to college and they have to go get a job and things like that. We should be looking at, talking about getting them ready for that too, not just the kids that are going to college. Let's talk about the whatever percentage of it is. I don't know what it is. Dr. McKay, you might know, but what percentage of our children don't go to college?
Yeah.
And then have this oh my God moment the day after graduation and go, what am I going to do with my world?
If you include the military, it's about 18%. If you
Okay.
include the kids who are going to military. And that has been my goal, with the CTE programs from the beginning, which was even if the child after 3 courses in a CTE program, say in construction, realizes that they don't want to do that knowledge base of knowing what they don't want to do is just as valuable as knowing what they want to do.
Right.
And remember, we're still talking about 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, and oftentimes they may be all over the place with what they think they want or what they want. And by offering as many of those CTE programs as we possibly can, and again, I'm proud that we still have 7 strong CTE programs, that the child has the opportunity to explore just what you're talking about, Mark. I mean, that really is crucial, because it's not, if there's no direction, then it's still a direction, right? I mean,
Sure.
okay.
So then maybe we could add that, you're on curriculum too, so we could
Yeah.
add that as a goal to, maybe another word, explore, because again, that's just what we're doing. Options, when we have the CTEs, but options, how to prepare students who are not going to college,
Mhm.
what we can do to meet their needs as well.
Yeah, and I have an idea for a possibility of an additional program where I think there will be interest. So that's something that we should talk about.
So we
Because
can
Because
it would be
there's-
something.
there's a lot of kids that graduate and they go out to start their own businesses and they're very, very successful without even stepping
course.
foot in a classroom after high school.
Right,
Right.
you were just talking about a young man.
Yes, I was. And
Okay,
he's-
so, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. I think these are, we can work on fine tuning that verbiage for next week to include all of these
Yeah, I'm just jotting
Ideas.
down notes so
Yep.
that way.
and review that verbiage, how we want to exactly do that next week. Item C that was on.
Yes, this one is essential. It's very important that this is one of our goals. We are expanding this program. We are putting someone in charge of this program and making sure that we identify earlier in the process. So it's very important that everybody understands that we have a very strong and vibrant ESL program.
Okay.
Justin,
Yes.
just to back up a little. bit,
Yep.
Don't we have to add civics? Shouldn't that be part of the goal? Wasn't there a law passed that we gotta add civics?
Yes, and we're putting that in.
So I'm saying, would that be a
Yeah,
goal?
We can put it
Since I
in.
don't think we.
Yep,
have-
we can.
I mean, it's required,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
right, just bring it up.
Yeah.
Definitely. For that item, where we want to survey or solicit feedback on additional course offerings and extracurriculars, what's our timeline for that? When do we want to have that feedback back so that we can make decisions for the next school year based upon that
When's the
feedback?
next curriculum committee meeting?
That I don't know. We're gonna get that set up. I mean,
But
it's
we
the end of
could,
the
we could
school
build
year.
the survey out of that meeting.
Right.
But we know when we need the information by, don't we?
Right, would it
Yes.
be around budget season?
Yeah, what would that be? January?
January and February.
Okay, so we're going to say that's January.
You put your course study out in February and March.
Okay.
If we're doing the surveys for courses, I think we should check at the end of the year how much of that survey actually made a difference. If we have 20 kids saying, want to take construction, but in actuality, only 2, we have to know that percentage for next year's planning.
Metrics.
Yeah. So we should do like an exit, just quick numbers saying
Sure.
how
And it-
well the surveys went.
And again, the piece of that is, and I'm just thinking as a high school person, the piece of that is, I wanted to take that course,
Right.
but I also wanted to take this
Yes.
course and this
Right.
course.
And they were
Because I
offered at the
wanted to
same
take
time.
this course and this course,
Yeah,
I couldn't take this course.
there's quite a bit of that.
There's quite a bit of that. Yeah. Mhm.
But it'd be interesting to see how many of those kids we have and in
Yeah.
what areas.
Yeah, and then to circle back and evaluate whether making any modifications or
Right.
changes was
Right.
successful. Okay, we'll work on that exact wording for the next draft of this. And then item 2 is very similar. It's in the same vein, except it's speaking to extracurriculars as opposed to course offerings. So-
Right, and I think that we did a really good job last year. We identified some new activities and
Yes.
added like the esports.
Mhm.
Thank you,
Mm.
Matt Shea, for that.
There's a sweatshirt on. Pointing to it.
Okay, stand up, Matt Shea. We're going to clap for you.
Modeling his sweatshirt.
But, I think that to look at the patterns and the trends, and that was definitely a trend that we were seeing of popularity. So,
It's huge.
You
right
know,
now, too.
yeah,
It's so
so-
huge across the state and the country. We've been following it. It's amazing.
yeah, and I've spoken to this before. There's a lot of scholarship money that comes along with it. So I'm thrilled that we have that here.
Yeah.
And I want to continue to look at those trends of activities
Yeah.
that we might not offer here that we could start adding to.
Absolutely.
So
The
I
world
would
is, constantly changing and
Mhm.
students' interests are constantly
Yeah.
changing. So we need to make sure that every year where we decide to spend our resources changes with that.
Yeah, so I think that we did a really good job last year with that, and I'd like to see if we could identify a couple more.
Great.
Already has.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I wrote.
And we'll talk about that at the Student Life Committee meeting too in our planning.
Okay. So item 3 was providing board oversight to ensure the continued progression of the in-house initiatives which have replaced outside therapeutic services. We were supposed to report out 3 times per year on that. I believe we did once or twice.
At least twice. We didn't do
Twice.
3, but we did 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
so do you want to leave it at 3?
Is that an ongoing program that the board wants to continue to monitor?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's important, very important. And I think we should add, we have December, February, June, so 3 times, but report out 3 times per year. And like, what should be included with that is like quantifiable data. Like, we want to know, are these programs working? We took out our therapeutic services. We have to make sure we're doing what our students need. So just adding with quantifiable data metric. I know, you got me on it now. So that way that's just
Yeah, how
simple.
do you quantify that?
What?
I'm just wondering what kind of quantify, like, it's easy to say, quantifiable data.
Well, because when you're dealing with
Like how many
therapeutic
kids or what's
situation, I
the-
mean,
what's
you
the-
can look at, there's so many different components. I mean, you can compare attendance, you can compare test scores, you can compare needs of students, hospitalizations. I mean, the list is endless. I mean, to me, I could do a whole dissertation right on that one little line right there and nothing would make me happier. So, I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Okay, going on from that, the next board goal and activity was to provide board oversight over the Department of Special Services to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all students. And this is something that the Special Services Committee has worked on.
Yeah, the Special Services Committee is meeting tomorrow. We have a meeting planned. So we can discuss this as well, but I think, we should keep it. Continue with all those aspects. We'll just change the timing, because the timing is pretty similar, ongoing, February 15th, ongoing February 15th. We'll just change the year.
How do we get feedback from CPAC?
Well, we have,
We have them right in our meeting. And then they bring back they'll report back to us on what their meetings were like.
right,
they're
well,
in our meeting?
we hold meetings. What happens is whenever the CPAC wants to meet with us,
Okay.
they're more than welcome to call a meeting. And then we just happen to call them CPAC Administrative Board meetings. And those are their meetings. They give us an agenda and they can report to us whatever they would like, give us information, have us look into different things. Recently, and then in our special services meetings, like Will Learn, our new director of special services, has met with the CPAC, taken tours of recently, tours of the school, went through and looked for different sensory things. And then in all those meetings, we'll get a report back.
Okay,
And
but they
we
don't
have-
attend our meeting, right? Or
They
do?
used to
I
have
thought they
meetings
didn't.
with
Okay.
us quite often before COVID. And then once
Oh.
COVID hit,
And that's up to them, whenever they
yeah,
want to call.
they would
in, we're
call
always
us
open.
and say, you know, we want to have a meeting. And we had meetings quite often.
We
Yeah,
did.
I was just wondering because I'm, I'm on special services and I hadn't seen them at a meeting, so I didn't know if we usually
Yeah, this
had
past
them
year,
or
they
how-
haven't really done that.
or if they dealt directly with you or how that
No,
worked.
they,
kinda-
yeah, I think
yeah.
COVID kind of put a clamp,
Yeah.
but no, in the past, I'd say we used to have, they would call a meeting once every other month with
Yeah,
us.
that's what I was gonna say.
And
Yeah.
we would all come together and like I said, it was their meeting. We opened it to them. We
Okay.
completely follow the guidance given by the Department of Education and allow them to come to us.
And did we invite them to
No, because those are our committee
Yeah.
meetings
Oh, okay,
and
yeah.
then they're separate. If they want to
So
call
we don't
one
invite them, but we do meet with them.
We do meet with
separately.
them.
at their,
Yeah.
yeah, it's for them to, whenever they want. And if I haven't heard from them for a while, as a chairperson, I'll reach out to the CPAG and say, hey, things are getting busy, let's just say it's the end of the year, things are coming to a close. Did you want to meet with us? If you do, maybe a good idea to throw out a time to schedule. But
Okay.
yeah, we probably met with them before COVID, once
I
every
would
other
say
month. I
every
would
other
guess.
month. And we were even planning like a fair to get together with them. Like we were
Right.
going to do a whole
But
evening
then
of different
unfortunately,
things.
COVID.
And then COVID hit.
Yeah,
know,
okay.
so,
So
yeah.
And
many
then
things,
even
right?
as a matter of fact, I mean, just what I did, knowing that, for example, for communication, knowing that the fence in the playground was on, since that was, to give you an example, the CPAG came to us and brought their concerns about the fencing at Glen Meadow forward to the committee. So then I punted that off, as I would, to Buildings and Grounds and said, this is their concern. We all went and saw it. And we took a look at it and now here it is. So I had sent an email to the CPAG just saying, hi, tonight, this is on the agenda, please watch, so that way there's communication and they're aware that this is on and I've been keeping them abreast of it. So, yeah, that was their follow through and here it is now sitting on the table. So it's actually a pretty good success.
Should we put on here that we should try to meet with them on a certain amount of times a year or something like that? So that
I don't want to,
It's up to them. you're saying.
Whenever they call us, we have never turned them down for a meeting, one of those
No.
meetings.
And
So
we've invited them on building tours and everything,
Yeah.
so,
our doors are open anytime they ever want to have a meeting. Our superintendent's been good. She's met with them, our director of special services.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put anything on them and say that they have to meet with us so many times a year because the thing with the CPAG is it's a special education parent advisory group. The school district cannot run the CPAG or the Board of Ed meeting. So we can't tell them what to
Right,
do.
to me.
So I want to honor the parent aspect of that and, let them run it. And like I said, whenever they want to come meet with us, they're more than welcome to.
and sometimes they'll ask us to come to a portion of their meeting.
Yeah.
We've done that,
Mhm.
so it's
Okay.
been good.
Yeah,
I
I
think
just
it's-
like to engage with them more,
Yeah, I think we haven't engaged as much
Yeah.
because of COVID, so.
Right, I understand.
Yeah,
Okay,
Special services is like IEPs and stuff for the children, right?
yes.
Do we look at that they're being met? Or are we meeting with the parents that have to be met on a yearly basis?
Well-
Are we missing some of the IEPs, especially like this last year or two, or year and a half with COVID? How, and it's not that we need it on a student level, but how we are doing as a district, are we meeting what we're supposed to get done? Because
Yes.
that should be
Yeah,
something we should be looking at.
yeah, the question,
also.
I'm sorry, did you want to respond, Mrs. Coughlin? or no?
You can, how about I reply from a board and you from our administration?
Okay,
From a
okay,
board perspective, for us, I understand your point because I'm the same way. And if I could take my word for it, I would. But that would be administrative. So as a board, what we can do is like here on our goal is provide board oversight. But we can't delve into the administration of it and say, are you doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing? Because then we would be overstepping. But then that's where we would refer to the administration who would then report back to us. So then I'll defer to Karen. Thanks.
so to answer your question, and I'm, luckily Mr. Fay is here to correct me if I'm wrong, our Director of Special Services. Mr. Smagala, you may not see him, he's behind the television, but he is here this evening and I'm grateful for that. So even last year during COVID, our IEP teams and our case managers were responsible to meet with families. Like almost every other interaction, a lot of those were done virtually. But I think that's what you mean by saying, are we meeting our district responsibility? by making sure that that we are meeting with the parents in a timely manner according to the IEPs. Is that the question?
Yeah. if we were
Then the
meeting
answer
those-
would be yes. Mr. Fay, would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, that would be yes. Up until the summer, predominantly all virtual meetings, and we've had actually excellent attendance from parents. Virtual was convenient for a lot of parents with their work and et cetera. But we stayed the course and we met all our deadlines to do all the meetings virtually. So it's really a good system.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, yeah. I just want to make sure we're tracking it. That's going to be our goal. Then we should make sure.
We're communicating with the county as far as what the guidelines will be for the upcoming virtual program option.
Mhm.
So it's really whatever, going to be the most convenient for the county.
And Charlie, if you ever want, if someone can't attend one of the special services meetings, and I always ask people to, what items they'd like on the agenda, and you want to either give an item for an agenda or attend in someone's place if they can't come, you're always more than welcome to. And then we could delve into that, like, we do review the services programs, department goals, all that kind of stuff, but it's a fine line that you can't administer.
Right.
So I'd like to actually add something to this goal,
Okay.
because it talks about the wide range of the needs of our students. I'd like to see all of our neurodiverse students kind of start falling under that special education umbrella. Even for the students who are academically performing at the top, their needs are different than their neurotypical peers. And I think it's important that these types of students are kind of led by a team that understands both sides. A certain percentage of them would fall under special education and other neurodiverse categories. Vernon has always been ahead of the curve in this area, and I'd like to continue to be ahead of the curve in this area.
So what are you looking to specifically add?
I think that it's important that we start having our students with PSPs also be part of the special services umbrella. They're kind of very separated right now. We have I can't remember if it's a director, coordinator
Yeah, the gifted program.
for the GATE program, but I think it's really important that these kids are neurodiverse. So we might as well, instead of doing some of it here and some of it there, streamlining it a little bit more. And I feel that we may be missing some kids that are both because they're good at hiding it. So I think that if we put it all under the same umbrella and we review their services and their programs, same as it says special services, we'd be in a much better position to help those wide range of needs.
I agree with you completely. And one of my philosophies, being a board member and just someone who's been in the field of special ed for 25 years, like it is. Special ed is anyone on either side of the bell curve, no matter how much people want to argue with it. It's the umbrella, it's people in the middle of the bell curve. That's your general ed. It's the kids on either end. And then you have the Venn diagram where they cross over and you have everybody in the middle. My only concern with that, and I'm just going to say, this is my only concern. I completely agree with you. I don't know if maybe we should do something different, include it in, but special services is a gigantic committee. I mean, we could meet twice a month easily without any problem and still have full agendas. So I'm more than happy to take it on, but as it is, like having to reschedule, and I mean, understandably, the summer is so difficult in general, and then the end of the school year. But it is a very big committee, which don't get me wrong, I kind of do enjoy that. I just want to make sure, Adina, that your needs are met, because I understand your needs and I agree with them. I don't know, should we do a completely separate goal? Do you want to keep that together? Like,
I think a
what
separate goal-
works?
I think either way would be appropriate. I think in some ways maybe we can explore starting out together, and if it's not working, if it's too much, then we can move it in a different direction. I think it has to be fluid, right? Because it's new.
Right.
It's kind of like a new suggestion or a new way of looking at things. So I don't know that we'll have all the answers.
Okay,
I'm happy to see it as either. I
okay.
think just having it on our minds and working towards it is a really good start.
Okay, I'm willing to take it on. Very happy to do so. And obviously anytime, like I said, with Charlie, if an item or, feel free to bring items forward. It's just special ed and special services, because then under special services, so everyone understands you have special services, you have related services. We've also included 504s as needed. Going now with the PFPs, like looking at the budget, as Dr. McKay has always said, and this is so true, your special services director is always like one of the most important people in your whole district, without a doubt, because what people don't understand for a director of special services, and that whole field in general, is what you have to know. Like, people often think, oh, they don't have to know curriculum. And I just kind of chuckle and I say, no. They have to modify curriculum. So if you have to meet one student's needs and that student is in 3rd grade, but reading at a kindergarten level, but doing math at a 4th grade level, which may not be uncommon, you have to know every single curriculum across the board and how to modify all of them to meet that one student's needs. And then that's not the student sitting next to them. So it's a huge comprehensive thing, as you know.
Absolutely.
So I'm more than happy to add it. I just want to make sure as we go along, if you feel as though your needs aren't being met in it, I don't want to ignore them. Please be vocal and let us know. And if we can all be fluid and work with adjusting it as needed to meet everybody's needs, that would be good.
Okay, so why don't we say that we will review the services and programs available to students with PFPs,
I would appreciate
similarly
that.
to
Okay.
to A.
And there are
and just
people, in the district that's what they do. So they would be a really great resource
Right.
for
Mhm.
that.
And I just want to make sure that every board member is aware of what we're talking about, because not everybody was around when this was implemented, but the PFP is a preferred future plan, and that is for students who are in the gifted and talented side of the spectrum of neurodiversity.
And some students have PFPs and IEPs. So there's that crossover.
Okay,
And just so everyone here is aware, because I know I get this question all the time, there can be students who are gifted and talented, but also have learning disabilities. It's not uncommon. Those students are called twice exceptional. So it literally, the spectrum of how this goes across is huge. So that's not uncommon at all.
for the activity 5, I believe that this can be removed because
Well, I don't want to remove the authentic senior year experience for the class of 2022. So I don't know where you want to put that, but I want to make sure that the Student Life Committee focuses on, an authentic senior year for our seniors.
why don't we move that to 1-3?
What are you saying? 1-3?
Move it to 1-3. Is
That
that
makes sense.
is that all right?
What's
I mean, it doesn't
1-3?
really fall under 1, but
Yeah. When you say 1-3.
district goal 1 and
Oh.
then
But
activity
the
No, it
3.
student life committee box is number 3,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because I guess it would be initiative, so we could put it in there.
But
Um,
doesn't really have anything to do with a safe learning environment,
No.
but supported at every level from classroom to community.
That is such an important aspect. I don't want to lose sight of that, and I want that to be a goal.
I could see it falling under community though, because within communities, senior
Yeah.
class has a
Okay.
sense of community within the larger community of the school.
All right, so we'll move it there.
Okay.
Anybody opposed to eliminating the rest of that goal, which speaks to,
Well, I mean, do we want to wait to see if there's going to be,
Yeah, because we may
we
possibly.
might have a hybrid situation.
Yeah.
Like, can never rule that out.
no, but
Well, we also may, we hopefully be in person, but we might have quarantine shutdowns, so.
Yeah, then how do you?
I think
educate them?
can we just leave it and
Yeah,
just,
maybe we should
see?
leave it.
Revisit it in January.
Yeah, because if it's obsolete, then it'll be
Yeah.
apparent, like we'll be saying like, well, there was no virtual, so that,
Right,
Yeah, why don't we just put revisit
How
in
about
January?
we just modify it to support students, parents, and faculty and staff if there is.
yeah.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
there is a hybrid or virtual
Okay, you
learning
could do that.
component.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
So then we're not going to
Then we
move
don't
the
choose-
No, we won't
senior.
move it. We'll modify it.
Yeah.
What's that, Mark?
Then we don't jinx ourselves.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's true.
You're
That's
right. If
good,
we
yeah, we
remove
should.
it, then it's definitely
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
Right, right?
That's true. Okay. Activity 6 was to create an ad hoc committee to determine the feasibility of alternative school start times, and that committee did not get off the ground in the last school year.
No.
We shelved it because of COVID. It just felt like, we can't really talk about that when we're not even sure we're in school. So
Yeah.
we kind of tabled it, but we should do it now. I mean, so it's part of your county goals too, right?
Yes, we added that to the county goals, but that's a very long, it's going to be a very
Yes,
long
it'll be a
range.
long process here too, yeah. It will
It's
be.
not a short conversation.
Is this something that has interest from a majority of the board
Why
still?
don't we
I'm
modify it?
definitely interested.
Why don't we modify it to track how we're doing this year?
Hmm.
See if we're gonna do 15 minutes, and let's see how it turned out and the benefits and stuff.
Well,
Instead of
who is
trying-
going to be on this committee?
I'll do it.
I would do it.
I'm having deja vu to us signing up for this committee last year, and then we didn't get it off. the
Okay, so
ground.
it's Ray, Jen, Adina,
And I
and
would gladly
Justin.
be on that. 'cause
Okay, Ray,
I've supported that for a long time.
Jen, Adina, and Justin. Okay, you guys are
Can't
on
wait
it.
for-
And say good luck to you guys.
Yeah.
We know it's gonna be.
God
hard.
bless.
Anybody know a good babysitter?
Who's gonna chair that?
I need to be
Uh,
I think this has been a passion project for Jen for some time. that She's spoken to. for a long
I took it on from, I think it was Mike Peak,
Yeah.
right? Wasn't it Mike?
So you're going to
Peak?
chair?
Would you?
Oh, boy. All right, I guess. Yeah, I should chair something. in there.
Pressure's on, Jen.
All right, yeah.
Okay,
But we didn't, so we had a committee
we did.
even prior, because when Mike was on.
Well, we
It was
did. It
Jen,
never
Mike-
got off the ground.
No,
But that's not this one, right? This is
We-
another one?
We did
I don't
have
know
an
if we
ad
had
hoc.
one when Mike was on, but
No, we didn't.
we had this goal to have a committee and then we talked
It
about it
just
and we
never,
said,
it never
Okay.
went
there's
anywhere.
no
Sounds like a do-over.
point.
Yeah, because I
Right,
just
yeah.
remember sitting in the middle like that and we had, and then I remember people.
And
No, we
Yeah.
talked about it a lot. I think that was 2019, because I was on 2019. We talked about it, I think, for months.
Mhm.
And then.
When I came on, we
When
did,
There were-
yeah.
that's
there were
when
lots
we
of-
rolled.
I think, yeah, and I think the
There are
data
lots of
was saying
superintendent
that we needed an hour
Right, and
to
the
make
data
it
no
really.
longer-
And we
and
started
we didn't
talking
have
about,
that.
yeah, we started talking about sports and then
Yeah.
COVID hit that year, at the
Yeah,
end
then
of that
that
year, and
stopped
it
the
all just went to,
Okay.
There were more important things.
yeah, we had other fish to fry.
All right, so we're going to leave that like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen, Ray, Dina, and Justin.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
District goal number 3 speaks to budgeting. So that is to exercise fiscal responsibility in order to optimize the district's limited resources towards safety and student achievement while continuing to pursue additional sources of revenue to fund what's possible. And the first activity under that is to optimize the district footprint and personnel based on current and anticipated future student population. We 3 years ago now, almost, or 2 years ago, conducted a demographic study,
Mm.
which really kind of got thrown into the air by shifting,
COVID,
by
right?
demographic
Yeah.
shifting dramatically.
As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, we have 2,945 students. So we're over the GRIP
The
study
projections.
by about 240 students.
For what this school year's
For this
projection
school,
was
yeah.
in the group study.
Mhm.
And COVID.
And there's
changed
still
that,
days
you know.
left in August.
He didn't know we were gonna have a pandemic.
He
right?
did not. He did not. And he does a terrific job, but things have changed
Yeah,
dramatically,
Yeah, for sure.
which is all good news. We welcome everybody who's coming to our community and wants to take part in our school system. You are welcome. You are loved. We are delighted to have
Can't
you.
wait to have you.
Yep.
Okay, so what do we want to do with this year? We need to continue to evaluate our demographics when we're making budgeting decisions for the next school year. So I think we need to continue to have this. Right, Kelly?
Yes, we're using this study with our long range plan. They asked us if we had a study, so we were ready and had that. So that was good. So yes, we are utilizing it.
Yeah, but isn't that demographic study
Yeah,
kind of done? Because the kid said
well,
we
it says
kept getting smaller.
updated. It does say updated with current figures, right?
I mean, I wouldn't do another demographic study right
No,
now.
I
No.
wouldn't.
No, I'm not saying to do
It
that.
was
I wouldn't.
pricey.
I'm
yeah.
not saying to do a new one, but
Um,
it should reflect we're going in the opposite direction. real data versus study.
There's
Especially when
gonna,
we
there's
talk-
gonna be a big shift. We have a lot of factors coming into the entire market. So I just, I think we need to hang on to our hats for a year just to really be able to see the full picture.
Yeah, there's some.
Because there's
I
gonna
think
be,
so,
there's
too.
gonna be factors in December that are really going to affect our town. And I just think
Are you
that
talking about foreclosures? Like,
all the foreclosures
Yeah.
gonna hit at that time.
Yeah, a lot of foreclosures.
So,
are
I
gonna
mean,
hit.
that
That's
is
true.
going to change the dynamics.
So to Ray's point, item B here, we should remove that. We're not going to recommend student or personnel structures based on the
that
study,
Study, yeah.
right? So we would say based on current
Current demographic
enrollment
data.
trends.
Yeah,
Why don't we say monitor current trend, because it's changing, right? So.
Yes. Do we want to continue to evaluate the current and future grade alignment within district buildings? Or is that something we're not looking to look at this school year?
I always want to look at that. I get beat down.
I feel like we've been through this backwards,
Yeah.
forwards, upside down, inside out, and we always come to the same conclusion at this point. I think if we're looking at a year-to-year thing, we should just give it a rest.
Especially
I
when
just,
there's so much.
I just think anything in this year, I don't want to upset the apple cart.
Okay.
I mean,
Right,
we're,
so
we're,
let's-
we're
yeah.
going, we're gonna be going through enough.
Yeah.
So I think we
let's
should
don't-
remove that
Yeah,
this year at the very
We can always
least.
bring it back next year.
We
if
can,
think it's
yeah.
necessary.
I think any changes right now is just adding an unnecessary layer.
Okay, I agree.
Then it becomes part of your multi-year plan anyway, right? Because we're talking about how these goals year over year evolve a little bit. So moving it to future years isn't a bad idea.
No.
Okay, completing the development of the 3-year financial roadmap and align district resources and revenues accordingly. This was also something that
Mm.
COVID kind of put
Yeah.
to the sideline. Ms. Linsky, you were not here when we were developing a future plan based upon the projected state aid cuts, but it was something that your predecessors were working on, and then they left. So
Is that the one that Ray provided and discussed with the board? for an hour?
no, it was
Okay.
it was based off of those figures.
Okay.
But
Right.
Steve began to go into a bit more detail, talking about specific metrics that we were and steps we were going to take in years 1, 2, and 3.
Which we should be thinking about.
We
Well,
should be,
let me just say that from the inside out, Ms. Linsky on a daily basis identifies and investigates and recommends cost-saving opportunities to me.
And me too.
And
In fact,
she
the fact
is,
that
I
this is
don't know.
colored
This is
paper,
colored paper.
colored paper, what is
The
going
merit.
on?
that's because I did it
Just
in
want to point
secret.
out that mine is printed in grayscale to save money.
do you guys have a
It
hidden
is
stash
double-sided.
where
All I'm-
you don't show her your color printers?
But all joking aside, I mean, she really has worked on some of the major,
Daily
issues.
conversations, right?
right, about
Yeah, for
cost
sure.
saving. And even when and one of the pieces here is about grants.
Mhm.
And we are after grants
Yeah.
all the time.
And they're coming through. Congratulations. Great job.
Even when they come through, Teresa has
Oh.
14 questions for me about the way it's going to be done and so I can say without hesitation that she's identifying, investigating, and recommending cost-saving opportunities to us.
Well, let's leave it on there and we can check it off happily every year.
Well, so do we, this spoke very specifically to a format that we were talking about using with
Yeah.
your predecessor. That might not be the format that you suggest.
Teresa might have a different.
You might
format
have a
for
different
projections.
way for how you do multi-year budgeting.
Well, you know how Steve had broken down the estimates of what the state cuts were going to be, and it was basically a simple sheet, and then it was building off of that, right, to project budget. But some of the things that you've looked at are far more, I don't want to say minute, but far more detailed than that general projection.
Well, this doesn't say how she has to do it. It just
Right.
says to do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, all we have is the revenues that come in. It's like, we can't create widgets and sell them. You know, or we don't have anything to sell. We just have to rely on the funds that we receive in and then take into account trends in enrollment you know, it's evolving, you know, like the enrollment's changed. I'll put together, you know, maybe I'll put together a plan.
And it's more like an estimate, right? We don't know what's gonna come in necessarily, but we can probably get pretty close.
Yes, but that was I'm looking at it from the macro level. I guess that's what you're saying. You had a macro look at it. What Ray gave you was a macro look,
Mhm.
but you want a micro look.
To a degree,
Okay,
You know-
and what would you suggest be in there? Like,
and
wasn't
I'm
part-
not, I'm not saying it's the best way to do this. You know,
Right,
you're a business administrator, that's your career. So you would know the best way to do multi-year budgeting and planning more than we would, because that's what you do. So maybe you have a way that you want to work with the finance committee to develop multi-year plans for the next 3 remaining years of state funding cuts.
Right, and I've looked at it from a macro level, not at the micro. The micro level, I am beating everyone up daily when I
She
see
is.
them spending and daily. So I have to, I've never put that down on paper because it's so fluid.
Yeah, it is. It's fluid.
It's
That's
like,
it.
how do you say, I can't say we're gonna cut a program because we're down this amount of money. I think the way that Ray has shown it going forward was that we were gonna fund the cuts from surplus from the years prior. And that got us through to where we level off again. Besides that, it's a budget and I could, look at personnel and determine what we negotiated and show that going forward, like the big items. And guesstimate, maybe a 2% increase on all of the other items, which would put us over budget at that point because we only have 2% to go to. But I'll explore it with the finance committee.
Okay, so
it kind of sparks a question for me here, and this one probably for Dr. McKay or
I'm right
Teresa
here.
or Karen,
Yep.
whoever. I think it's great that we're taking steps to save money and things like that. Do we track that and do we know how much money we've actually saved? Or is this something that is like a kind of something that just happens? I mean, I'm just curious because if we are saving money and, the three of you are together on this and you're very successful at it, I think that's something that we might want to put out there and say, hey, you know what, listen, last month we saved X amount of money, or in the last 6 months, we saved X amount of money. And that money now it's still in the budget, obviously. So we saved it and now we're going to put it towards this. I think I think that if you guys are doing that, that's great. And I think that people should know that. So I don't know if we track that at all or what have you, but it would be great to know that we saved $50,000 in 3 months. And now we're going to take that and put it over here where we can use it better than where it was over here.
I don't
it'd be
wanna
really
speak-
neat.
I don't want to speak for Teresa, but there's a phrase that I almost have memorized. Say it for a moment, and then I want to piggyback on it. The pennies.
Watch the pennies and the dollars take care of themselves. It's
Watch-
gonna be on my.
It's going to be on her
tombstone. If I
tombstone. We
was
talked
not
about
going to be
this.
cremated,
but-
that was gonna be my.
But my point is, and Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong. So Martin, I'm following you. I think, and I don't want to speak for Ms. Linsky, she'll correct me. I think that the concern about this tightening, right, which is what you're describing, and it literally happens every single day in our offices with every conversation because things come up. Teresa will recommend or speak to Dr. McKay and I or to Mr. Fay and say, okay, if we're going to do this, what can't we afford, right? Because we have a budget, we have to stay within budget. So
Mhm.
she really has been the budget police. However, I guess my question is, if we manage to save money on not using color ink or using double-sided instead of single-sided printing, I don't know that the plan is to allocate money elsewhere. I think we want to try to generate savings. Is that what?
yeah, I think Martin is saying, are we
Yeah.
tracking any of those
Oh,
cost savings
okay.
opportunities? Because one of the first
Yeah.
indicators of success for this was to identify, investigate, and recommend cost-saving opportunities. So, if we're identifying cost savings,
Yes.
are we taking note of what those are so that you can kind of
I think
circle
this
back into your
year-
victory lap
Yeah.
for the
Yeah,
board?
well, that's the whole
Basically.
point. That's
Well,
a
that
real
goes back to
positive
that
thing.
goes back to your metrics, right? This
Right.
year, we should be able to, because this is a new initiative, right? This will be Teresa's first full year with us. She hasn't yet had the opportunity to work with the administrative team the way that I envision a BA working with principals. I mean, every district I've ever worked in, the BA has met with the principals and had them defend their budget and then actually try to trim. So I know that Ms. Linsky will be working on that as one of her initiatives as well. So that would be a metric, right? Where if we are able to decrease spending in certain areas, that's pennies that add up to dollars, right?
And a lot of what I'm doing or trying to do is free up funds
Yeah.
to handle the special services needs or the curriculum needs.
Yeah.
It's not, it's to make sure like someone comes to me and says like, oh, we need, new textbooks. And we didn't have budget, but we absolutely have to have it. It's like, okay, where are we going to cut in order to make that work? Because you have a budget you have to stay within. And there are, the energy plan, we're working on that. Where I was just found out that we can't do it for we can only do it for the high school. We can't do it for the other schools because we're SREC, Sussex Rural, and we don't pay a societal fee.
Mhm.
So that's going to be a savings when that happens, when they come here and if we implement, because that's a free program. So if we implement what they tell us based on what we have in the long range facilities plan and the resources available to maybe change out all the lighting or then we can measure those savings. We save as far as going out for quotes. You get 3 quotes, we make sure we go with the best quote, not necessarily lowest, but we don't just purchase without looking first. We have co-ops, we look, so it's an ongoing, but I will note any major successes.
It's stuff that happens behind the scenes, but speaks very heavily to the effectiveness of the administration.
So I agree that should continue to be on here and that, to the best of your abilities to record, what those savings are and report out to the finance committee and that'll come through the full board. So should we change the verbiage of the activity itself to complete the development of multi-year financial projections and align district resources and revenues accordingly? I don't want to box you into a format that your predecessor was suggesting. You need to work with the finance committee and your office to develop what works for you.
Mhm.
So is everybody good with that? And then we'll keep the 2 other indicators of success. Okay. Oversee the proactive pursuit of all prudent alternative sources of revenue. We have been actively pursuing grants with some success.
Yes,
So
finally. Good job. $350,000.
Again, thanks to Mr. Gagliostro and Ms. Homestead
So that
for
will
all
pay-
of their efforts with that. We presently, with the state, you have a document called EWIG, and when you go in, it lists all the things that you're actively pursuing. And presently, we have 4 grants sitting in there that we're actively pursuing. One that we just won, which is the $350,000 a year for the Glen Meadow Community Outreach, which will be from 3 to 6 every day at Glen Meadow. And that grant regenerates every year if we are successful. So we're talking about, and we could possibly increase it to 500,000 if we add additional programs or additional grade levels. So you're talking about a lot of money coming in to the district for that program. And we just finished up with the Pathways Grant, which basically financed 2 of the CTE programs who are now very wildly successful, particularly the Allied Health Program at the high school. Just ask any student who's involved in it. There's now a medical room in the high school based on money that we won from a grant. So we continue to pursue all of those. And again, I thank the team who works actively on it. Robin lets us know what she finds, and then Vinny and I and others tear it apart. So, and there's many others involved as well.
That's great because, based on the school, the board did about a year and a half ago create the position of the grant writer.
Yep, that's Robin.
And that's a $10,000 per year stipend. So
Mhm.
that grant will pay for that for 35 years. So.
I'll
see.
I'll let Robin
So
know.
she's good. She's ahead of
Yes.
her.
Let her know.
Her salary on that. So we should continue to do this. We did have a referendum committee that began their work a year and a half ago. I think both Martin and Adina worked to identify projects. That committee tapered out with COVID because.
It just was.
But you did identify some really critical projects,
Yes.
which have rolled into the Buildings and Grounds Committee and will roll into the Long Range Facilities Plan.
So we can take that off.
So we can take that off, but there was good use out of that, and I appreciate everyone who put their time into that. So. Okay, we talked about marketing the district. We
Yes.
did have open house events prior to COVID, but we haven't been able to, and they were successful. We
Yeah,
had a
we
lot
can
of
see them
people come
again.
through.
No, I would love to
We
do them
can have
again.
them.
We just, we can do them now. I think that.
As long as we have this, we should be okay, right?
Yeah.
So if we said to
Visitors
folks,
are allowed and.
Yeah.
even if we put on our
So
signs,
they're gonna
masks
They have to wear masks,
required,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
With
but
so
we'll get
much
you through.
relocation of families, that could be
Yeah.
really valuable.
I think it is. I think it is. That's
Now
why
more
we
than
started
prior
it.
to COVID.
So, and it's a
Yeah.
great retention piece. So, yeah, we'll get together with Dr. McKay.
Sure,
and
sure.
And we'll have my perky people come.
Kelly, do you find that from people who are coming from out of the area and moving away from the city, as we've seen a lot of families doing,
Mhm.
that they're coming from, with realtors from out of the area? Or are they coming and finding a local realtor? Like, are there realtors outside of Vernon who we can inform about these events to make sure that we're,
The vast majority are coming to our local
They are.
agents, and our local agents have been really supportive of the initiatives that we've
Okay.
done. So they will call me and chat with me and say, can we get a tour for my people on this? Dr. McKay has been amazing.
No, yeah, well,
So if we're gonna
what
do
our-
these
Accommodates everybody.
if we're gonna do these open house events, we should make sure that we're getting families that
Yeah,
are looking at moving to the
we've
area
been
that are
directing
outside
them
of
to
the area.
Dr. McKay, because we weren't doing the open
Yeah.
house
Right.
events, but now we're getting them back up and running.
What we tried to do when COVID was happening was after the kids had left the school, the school was empty, we would bring folks in. But we were worried about it, right? We're worried about everybody. So, but we have given tours this summer, no doubt about
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is an active new population
Population, yeah.
and we're delighted to have them.
So
Yeah.
we should
Like I said,
definitely do that this year.
So we'll get the schedule started
Yeah.
in September, and we'll do September, October, November, like we did last time.
Mhm.
And, whoever would like to join me.
Perky committee.
Except
It was great. I mean,
You have
the-
to-
You're not perky.
for-
Do it.
You have to be
For new board
Stairs.
members.
Don't put in your head.
It was really great for new board members. When we did these in the past, the board members would be at the front door to welcome people in and answer any initial questions. And then we'd set them up with an administrator who would tour them around the high school and show them everything that our high school had to offer. So it was really,
Mhm.
You may even want to think about putting,
Walking around with Dr. McKay, it was really
That's great.
wonderful, and I think Kelly mentioned the retention piece for our students in middle and high school, and I think we opened eyes to people who even live here, whose kids were here, K 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and had no idea what we have to offer at our high school.
there were families who said as they were leaving, we were thinking of not going to Vernon, but we changed our mind because they went through the school and saw how
I'm one of
well developed our high school is.
And,
all
and
around.
But I
by the
think
way, those students are still with us. I mean, I was on one of the open houses and accompanied a couple of families, and they're still here. In other words, they didn't come and leave either, right?
Yeah.
So what we showed was this wonderful comprehensive high school, dedicated faculty, and they're still with us. So that's a testament.
Yeah, I mean,
They were very impressive. And all of the faculty that was there were volunteered their time.
Absolutely.
It was really
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Absolutely. And when you talk about their programs, even if the teacher wasn't there, the people are impressed with the program, and
In the classroom.
it's not
Amazing.
just salesmanship. Then the children then go to those programs and they go home and tell their parents, my
This is-
goodness, it's unbelievable.
That was the
Yeah.
best part, when you saw how excited some of the kids got about going to high school and
Yeah.
everything that they could do. That was the best part.
So
Yeah.
I think one of the things we might want to do also is put something on our website that says schedule a visit. Because when I went to move into town 4 years ago, I was looking for a town with a good school, et cetera, et cetera. The first place I went was a website. And then I had to go down, get the phone number. I called, made an appointment to make the tour. But I think that to let people know it's available to them,
Mhm.
where they could sign up, somebody get back to them. Because I have to say that the reason I moved to Vernon was because of the school. I had my choice of moving pretty much anywhere in the area I wanted to. And when I did come for the tour, it was impressive.
It's a good
Yeah,
suggestion.
that is a
Mark.
good
And
idea.
Thank you.
You like the perky people there.
And I like the perky people.
I'd also like to
Right.
The
say,
engineering department was what impressed me the most.
I
but-
believe I brought this up once before, but we should be telling the people that the colleges these kids attend.
Yes,
And I will go back to Justin's grade. My daughter was in his grade.
yes.
I was trying to keep a kid, a hockey player, in Vernon from a school not to be named. And they
Oh, go
said, well,
ahead.
kids from Vernon don't go to these top schools. And in Justin's class, I remember, I believe there's 3 kids that went to
The
Ivy
top
League
three, yeah, the
schools.
top 3 kids went to,
Loyola, Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon for
Yes.
singing or acting.
Yes.
And the person was like shocked. They don't know that.
In the folder that we give them, Ray, we have what's called the senior brag sheet. And
I think we should
it's
put
something
it
that, yep.
In the
it's-
paper,
Mhm.
For the
you
website.
know, put it for everybody to
That
see.
should be out there.
You know, people, I mean, I did real estate long ago. They come, they grab the paper, they grab this, they look,
Mhm.
you know, and they see that. I just think,
Yeah.
you know, we got a great district,
Great
you know, we got our bumps like everybody else, but if there's one thing over the years I've been here, we don't promote it to the outside world as
Yeah.
much as we do.
So
here.
then on here, it says, that we're gonna work on a marketing piece. So maybe letter C would be to revamp our website. You know,
And maybe we have great brochures, great materials, maybe we can get them in the hands of agents.
Yeah.
Can you do that though?
We have done,
I don't
we have,
know.
we have
Kelly,
put
you
the
would-
Yes,
folders
yes, you
out to
can.
the.
We
to
have
the-
folders in our office.
Okay.
Yeah, we have folders in the office.
Awesome.
Yeah,
is
you
that
could be other
something that
folders.
is, I don't know what goes into the development of our entire website. Is that something that's doable this year?
Matt,
I
what,
don't think so.
what's,
I don't think so.
What-
I don't want to speak for Matt. I've been through this before.
I can't
Revamping
see
the
his
website
face.
is a
Is he making a face?
Well, you could do
But I
like
think we
small
can do
things.
additions to it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I
revamping
mean,
it
I
is
know
a-
how
Oh,
to
is a
okay. You
totally
said
re-
revamp. I was
Monumental
like,
task.
Yeah.
I go
Yeah.
bigger.
I
go
started to
home,
get heart palpitations and I'm not a tech person.
Okay.
Make additions.
Are fairly quick to do, so a schedule,
Schedule a visit. Yeah.
Those types of things are quick. If you're talking about blowing up the website and starting from scratch,
No,
that's like a 3 to 6 month project.
Okay. So we should evaluate our website and evaluate and update our
we'll say
website.
update,
Website
not
should be,
revamp.
should be an ongoing thing anyway.
Okay,
Right, and
Right.
then which
I like update.
committee do you want, I mean, it's curriculum and technology, but I don't, that's
No,
not
student life.
really. Oh, so student life is gonna revamp the website?
no, it
No.
probably go under curriculum technology because we have
What?
Matt at every meeting,
We're
so.
marketing people.
I got mad at my meetings, I win.
Who do you have?
I got Matt Shea, he comes
Matt,
to
Okay.
you
my
don't
meetings.
come to my student life meetings.
because it's a technology.
Technology.
It's
Technology.
curriculum and technology.
Oh, Teresa's in technology?
Curriculum and
Well,
technology.
curriculum and
Curriculum and
tech.
technology.
We
Oh,
combine the
that
two
was
committees.
combined.
I thought it was
Because we're always
I thought it
working
was
together.
marketing.
This is all we
That's
do.
right.
Well, the
Marketing
website.
is our student life.
Okay.
All right, so
Alright.
we'll have to
Well, we
mesh
can-
this somehow,
but-
but I'm just
But there's
saying.
still a
Well,
large piece
well,
of
this will be a
Mark's gotta
challenge
figure
because you and
out a-
Teresa never talk. So I don't know how you'll manage to figure this out. So you'll have to somehow get each other's numbers or something.
I know, yeah, they'll have to
Yes.
figure out how to.
I never say a thing, so I'm just shocked that you wouldn't know.
Matt, while we're talking about it,
Okay.
maybe tomorrow we can take a look at it. There's a niche study. It's called Niche and it has a rating of the different schools in New Jersey.
You need it.
And it's
You have to
it's
be
very
clear.
clear
Yeah.
and straightforward and it gives grades to us on certain things, B+ on this, B on this. Well, pretty well. And it's really well done. So maybe we can tack
We
that.
should be ranked in niche is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it shows where we are, but it's really clear cut and it's not so driven by people's comments. I mean, the comments that are on the site are good based on what our students have said and what our people, our parents have said. But the niche site just goes and it's like one page and it's really pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
it's great. to use
maybe
for
we can
colleges,
just
too.
do that.
Yeah.
And that might be a start. I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay.
So then last but not least is board training. So the second item under that is to complete mandated training required by NJSBA, which we do every year because we're required to. We're the only elected public officials that are regularly trained.
I would like to do a certified board, but
The problem with the certified board is that when you have board turnover, you have to start over because
Just start all over.
yeah, so
We did that
when I first joined, the board was very close to completing that. And then
We were right there.
some of us, like myself, joined and screwed it up because
Craig just did
it's
it.
based upon
Certain
X number of
percentage.
members have to have completed
Yeah.
X amount of trainings as a whole board. But when board members come and go, that becomes a,
I know, but can we look at it if?
I think this is a huge thing for us. 'Cause all the
Yeah.
stuff we talked about before is all great and stuff, but we gotta function better.
I agree
And I
with that.
think training is, because we got 1, 2, 5, 6 brand new relatively members. You know, even with an election, if people aren't here, there'll be new members. So we should certainly,
So, I mean. if
I've heard
there's-
about a
there's always
weekend where
Can I
people
just say
spend
that-
all day,
yeah.
but we need to do that.
If the 3 of them get reelected, then we could do the certified board because we would probably be right on track to be able to do it in time.
Maybe.
long-
Can we get
We have
excited?
to look
Can
at
we get
what,
excited
we
about
have
this,
to look,
please?
we
How
have to
long
look
does
at
it
what the
take,
process
I'm
entails.
sorry. How long does it take for the certified board?
It
It's like-
takes long.
Like, it takes more than-
It's just, I don't know. I
It's hours-
really,
it's
I'm
hours.
just asking. 'cause
Don't
I
listen to her.
I have never been called perky, so.
It's hours of training.
I was
so,
just curious.
We should
I
look
don't know,
into the
it's long.
requirements of that, of what becoming a
I
certified
will
board.
look into that.
Great, but in addition
It's
to
like-
that, just speaking in general terms to what Ray is bringing up. We have tried on numerous occasions to schedule
Yeah.
board retreats and board trainings and scheduling that has been a beast. Because we were working with like 12 different schedules and usually that would be something that would occur on like a Saturday. Because it's a full day thing, you know, you'd be here for 4 or 6 hours. I'm always open to that if there's interest from the rest of the board.
I think that would be great.
I don't think it should be optional. I don't know what,
You should make
there
it,
could be consequences, but we gotta figure it out to get there, because
I
we
think
need
the
a lot of
investment-
training with so many new members.
Yeah. The investment.
Can't
is-
hurt us.
Yeah.
why don't we
Well, and
make
I
that
think just
a
getting to
goal?
know-
One meeting, you know, one weekend a year or something, we all go together, you know, and just
Yeah.
learn, you know?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. I do understand kind of the troubles, like you said, 12 schedules.
We tried 3 times.
And I feel like the last time the board did it was like 2018, or somewhere about then. I do think it's a good idea to try. You know, I think there's a certain amount of us getting to know each other on a little bit more of a personal level that will help the way we work together.
The other point that
What?
I think,
No.
the other point that Ray said was, I don't mean, I think he used the word voluntary, but I don't know that it, I think we were trying to get everybody to be there, and I think that's why it was rescheduled so many times. Even having the majority of the members there, we have such a vast amount of knowledge from our veteran members, the folks that have been on the board for a long time, plus the people that are relatively new. Even having the opportunity to have veteran members with newer members still gives us the opportunity to start to cross-train one another. I'm just a huge advocate of training and professional development. I mean, I think it's important. And, you know, we talk often about being a little more efficient, streamlining the process, shortening board meetings, all of those things could maybe be achieved when we look at training. Well, I'm just
I
saying.
think that it's a
We're not
great.
even on, we're not even through our discussion items.
I
It's
I
9:30,
completely,
so,
yep, I
you know.
completely agree. If there's interest from the rest of the board, which it sounds like there is interest in doing that, we should try to get that on the
Well,
calendar
then
again.
why don't we? do it
I
as a-
agree. And one of the things that made it a little more feasible in the past was when we did have the training, which New Jersey School Boards, our trainer comes up and she hosts it and whatnot. it was like, I think Karen just said it was the majority, like not every single person had to be there. Cause I think someone
Right.
in their family just had a baby, but then someone joined by video. So that counted. You know, you do what you can. There's 9 of us.
It's still better than
It's better than
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah, our goal, what's our goal now? 0. So let's.
Right.
So
Metric,
80%,
right?
you know.
The metric
80%
is more than
participation.
0.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Right, so we want to
not
complete a
like-
board, we want to call it a board retreat, right?
Yes.
We're looking to do complete one board
One.
retreat per year,
Yes.
and that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
As far as planning that goes,
I will plan.
Kelly, she's perky.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think
Kelly will put-
my suggestion.
And I'm at the county level, so I see Kathy all the
So
time.
what I think we should do to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the diverse places that everybody on the board is coming from is I'd like to put together a little group to plan that. So I'd like to, Kelly and I as board leadership, I'd like to invite maybe the most senior and one of the most new members of the board, 4 of us to get together to have a little planning session, talk about what topics we think might be of interest, and then come back to the board with a plan.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody? Okay, so most senior member by length of service is Joe or Teresa.
Joe.
Yeah.
Oh, you're free, right?
Joe or Teresa, if it depends if you look at consecutive, you guys can fight
Well,
over that
Teresa
spot.
is actually a lot older than I, so she's my senior.
I know all my
So you and
grandchildren.
Joe can fight over who will join us.
Joe will be joining you when he gets back.
And either Charles or Martin or Ray.
I'm up for it, whatever anybody wants to do.
I just joined
You're
that
both
other.
pointing at each
Yeah,
other.
You're up.
Yeah, we
Yeah, I'll do
got
it.
him for the ad hoc, so you
Okay,
get
so
Charles.
Okay, so what is it? Charles?
I'm gonna get beat up on that.
You, me, and either Teresa or Joe.
I'll be happy to serve if you need
Great.
me.
All right, so the 4 of us
And,
should get
and be
together.
perky about it.
Oh, and he's willing to be perky.
Great.
This is awesome.
All right, so the 4 of us should get together in the
And
next
that was
month.
on video.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
recorded.
Sweeney.
This is all on
Teresa,
video.
you owe me one.
All
And
right,
we'll
so
come up with a format and a
Charles,
plan.
Joe, Justin, Kelly.
Right.
Okay,
All right, we'll meet in the
Great
next few
idea.
weeks.
this is gonna be the best day ever.
Just
All
bring
right.
food, they will come.
Okay.
No, he definitely has that.
All right.
food.
All right, so I will
And you
modify
have
this
to bring,
document.
we bring food. We don't pay with the board money. to bring
Yes,
food.
yes.
That's right.
That's
I
right.
on
will,
the
I will
savings.
buy the food.
I'll
I
buy
will
the-
I make a motion that Teresa Linsky shut up.
Yeah, really.
Joe
Teresa's
wants,
cooking.
Joe wants bagels and coffee. All right,
Okay,
so
we're done with.
we will modify that and get
Good
a new
hour.
draft out to everybody. Next, superintendent goals. See, that wasn't too painful, everyone.
I'm not sure how to proceed considering, did anybody bring pajamas or slippers? So
We're all gonna figure it straight.
the superintendent draft goals do say draft on them. They've been provided to the board. They're also provided on the website when we upload all of the documents that the board receives. I don't want it to be lengthy, but there are certainly important things to talk about here. So their projected goals, the first one is assess, monitor, improve wellness practices in the district to support student and staff, mental and physical health and academic growth with a focus on continued transitioning and support of students and staff back to the ever-changing school environment while considering the future needs of our students and staff post-COVID. It's really hard to predict what the future will hold. I think that this year we'll be dealing with COVID and I hope next year we will not, but the first major activity talks about developing a plan to re-enroll, identify, recruit lost or unenrolled, homeschooled, or transferred students as a result of the pandemic. I need a close parenthesis there. My concern, and I don't know the real estate projections, but depending on what happens with COVID, we could have parents who opt to homeschool their children based on some of the masking comments here tonight. There are also a number of studies coming out now about lost kindergartners across the country, that it's the largest number of any grades K-12, that parents understandably said, I'm not sending you to school. So I think it's important for us to monitor the enrollment and the unenrollment of our students this year so that we can kind of be ahead of that curve for the future. And of course, some of the items are academic and SEL summer programs, similar to the ones we ran this year, as well as after school or other programs. to support and enhance SEL and academic needs. And then providing recommendations for how we will need to shift instructional practice moving forward to accommodate any future COVID needs. That speaks a little to the potential of a hybrid or virtual model if we need to go in that direction again. And then use ESSER or other grant funds to support services needed moving forward where necessary. Questions, comments on the first number of goal 1?
I just have a comment. I mean, just looking at this for the first time today and being pretty much a new board member and stuff.
I think
mean,
I sent it yesterday though, Martin,
Okay,
or 2
but
days ago. Or
we have
something.
jobs, so
Oh.
we have to work. And
Right, no, sure.
Today was when I looked at it.
I didn't want you to not have it ahead of
But
time.
can I don't know how the other board members feel about it, but can we table this discussion until we get a chance to really review this? I'd like to put, a little bit of effort into it, you know what I mean? And
Sure.
just
Yeah.
reviewing it and having you say it and everything is great, but I don't
I
really, I
have no
don't feel I had
problem at
enough time to
all.
review it to really make any comments whatsoever.
Yeah, you know what? I think the only reason I brought it forward was that in my contract, there's language that says that the goals need to be reviewed and approved before September 1st.
Oh,
If the board chooses to amend or soften, that contractual language, that's up to you. As a board, you can do that.
Well, we could do it next week, right? And
You
still be-
could.
I mean, even if we waited till next, I'd just like a
Yeah.
chance to really look at it. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
they
know how
were
everybody
not-
else feels if I'm way
They
off the mark.
they were not
No, I
approved
mean,
last year.
we-
Last year, we didn't, I'm sorry, last year, we didn't end up finally approving them till like October. They went through several revisions.
Right.
Oh, so you
I
wanted
want-
to get it, okay, you wanted to get it underway in case we
I
had.
mean, if everybody will agree to read this and then we can really talk about it next
Yeah.
week, but I want to stay within the contract language. So if we could please just make sure that you all read this. And if you have any questions, if you can email Karen, so that way we come to the table next week,
Good.
really prepared.
Yeah, I think it'd
Okay.
make a much more productive
Good plan.
conversation.
All right,
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much. Much appreciated. But you don't need your pajamas.
No pajamas yet.
All right.
Although we have
We've got 10 more pages
to
of
go.
agenda.
Okay, we're only on page 3.
No, we're gonna fly through this again.
Okay.
Number 4, school start times.
Yes, this was a request to be placed on the agenda. If my computer hasn't died, I have a statement that's actually not totally complete, but the adjustment to starting our schools approximately 15 minutes later was shared via notifications from principals at the end of the first week of August. The reason the information was shared then was to give ample time for families to make the necessary adjustments to their schedules prior to schools opening. In order to successfully and safely transport all of our students, we must ensure adequate time between routes. This is due to the large geographic area that buses need to cover and the terrain our buses travel. Therefore, almost an hour between each tier is important to pick up students, drop them off at one school, then have the same buses head out to a remote part of Vernon to pick up another group of students, therefore the tiers.
Right.
This limited resource is of concern this year. Oh, I'm sorry. There's also been a driver shortage that we remain concerned about. This limited resource is of concern this year and will be in future years. I think if we're going to continue to talk about start times, the limited resource of certified drivers is going to be a huge obstacle. In fact, some schools in the county have reported that driver shortages have further impacted their routes and the ability to transport students to and from schools. We can say safely that we have the drivers we need for now. While any adjustment to our normal routine can be challenging and wrought with obstacles, I remain dedicated to working through these concerns with parents and caregivers. We had a total of 3 people contact the district in regards to questions or concerns about a 15-minute adjustment. I'm certain that working together, accommodations can be made to assist families where necessary. I'm also aware that due to COVID, everyone is still a little fragile, right? So anytime that we're moving through changes or challenges, it can be difficult. So with grace and compassion, I think that that's essential to problem solving. The impact of a 15-minute change has likely created scheduling challenges for elementary school parents, but a sigh of relief for middle and high school students who, for the most part, do not get enough sleep and whose lack of sleep impacts academic performance, driving, tardies to school, absenteeism, and other essential items to perform well in school. Wellness is a topic that should be at the forefront of all conversations during the pandemic. I know we're not talking about my goals this evening, but you can see that wellness is something that I think is really essential for us to talk about for our faculty, staff, students, families, and for everyone as we embark on another challenging school year. I don't have specific information to discuss. I don't know if the board has questions.
I did add this to the agenda, and I thank you for putting it on. I asked to have it added to the agenda because I'm very much against it. And I want the public to know that this was not a discussion with the board, the full board at all. We found out after the teachers found out. I'm very disappointed about that. I think that during a difficult time, especially during COVID, to add a layer of change of 15 minutes, which, you referenced lack of sleep. 15 minutes is just one slap of the snooze alarm. So I don't know that that's really gaining anything for anybody. And I don't like how we didn't have a discussion. We discussed everything ad nauseum here at the board, and we didn't even have the opportunity to discuss it. It's disrupting the entire community, businesses, students, teachers, and parents that have to get to work. And I don't think that the 15 minutes was worth it. And I'm asking if we can have a reversal of it. And that's what I have to say about that.
So I totally disagree with that. As we talked about earlier, there's copious research that supports the academics behind it, that it's positive for mental health, that there actually is an impact for 15 minutes. There are studies that specifically studied 15 minutes and showed that there's a positive impact in students on multiple levels. I can share them with you. I think that it was a great move by the administration because we had the opportunity to make it happen. It's something we've been kicking down the road for years, and we all know the research is there to support it. It might be an incremental step, but if you want to do something and you get a chance to take a step toward the road that you want to be on, you should grab it. And the timing was such that you couldn't wait to talk to the board, or you wouldn't be giving people the notice they needed to adjust. And parents do adjust. I mean, change is hard, right? Good change, bad change, they're both hard. You have to adjust, but that doesn't mean you don't do it if it's something that's good for students. That's what we're supposed to do here, do what's best for students.
I will say that I am in support of this decision for many reasons. The newest study, which was April of 2021, expanded the study, not just high school like previous studies, but also to all the way down to grade 5. The study showed that even with a 15 to 20 minute delay, so to speak, that students were more likely to actually get the recommended sleep. Someone who had emailed in said, well, we're just going to go to sleep later. That study did not prove for that to be true, that students were actually getting the recommended amount of sleep. And that we know that greater sleep yields better academic outcomes. And even more important than that, than actual GPA, that the extra sleep, the right amount of sleep does enhance cognition and memory, which then leads to those academic outcomes. This was one of the first studies of its kind to go down to 5th grade. It was done with the University of Minnesota, with the Bloomington Public Schools. We've been talking about later start times since 2019. There was an opportunity here that our administration needed to seize. And I'm glad that you did, so thank you.
So I'd like to chime in for a second here. Sorry, I got too close to my microphone.
go
Go
right
ahead, Dr.
Nope,
McKay,
go right
first. I think that the feedback that I've received from my children are that they don't like it. My 16-year-old cannot get to work on time. I take my hat off to the sophomore who wrote that email.
Mhm.
It was extremely well written.
Yes,
It hit every single point that my own children brought up. Okay.
absolutely.
Relying on these studies, okay, knowing what I know about statistics and whatnot. Okay, figures lie and liars figure. Okay. You have to take into consideration the sample size, the part of the country, things of that nature. Okay. I'm sorry, but it's my opinion that anybody who thinks that these children are going to get 15 minutes more sleep is completely fooling themselves. Okay, because this will give the children a false sense of, I can sleep later, so I can stay up later. And I actually think they're going to end up staying up even later than that 15 minutes. Okay, I don't know that the impact is positive whatsoever. I think it's going to have a negative impact on parents bringing their kids to the bus stop and having to get to work. I think it's going to have a negative impact on sports teams. And it's definitely going to have a negative impact on those children who work, because their working hours might go from 3 o'clock to 4 or 5 hours from them to now 4 o'clock to 4 or 5 hours from them, because they can't make it. There's no way in the world they're going to make it to work by 3 o'clock. All right. The only way that my daughter's going to make work by 3 o'clock is if I pick her up at school and bring her right to work. And that's unfair to the kid.
I'm not a big fan of it either for some of the reasons with Martin. I understand the studies, but studies are studies. Look at the mask study. I could give you 50 studies both ways to wear the mask, don't wear the mask on your head. I mean, studies are studies, but 15 minutes to me doesn't make a big difference. The sports, that girl played for me last year, the sophomore, and I see rushing in, they don't have much time to get ready as it is. I'm sure I can find a study that kids who go to a sport and are rushing to get ready are more likely to get hurt than kids who have adequate time to prepare.
Absolutely.
And this goes even for clubs, everything. I mean, Vernon, we pretty much have everything for these kids. And now they're all going to be rushing around, getting later, changing the buses, in the winter when it's darker, earlier. I just don't see that the 15 minutes. If the whole county or the state was going to move an hour, then it would make more sense to me. Just hours, an hour, hour and a half. But to me, 15 minutes doesn't make that, it's not worth the disruption that it will cause. And plus, where we're located, I know sports more than the other things. Our away games are far, and I'm not even talking about hockey, just all the regular teams are down Morris County. I mean, we're in the Sussex-Warren division, so I would say we just keep it the same. And
The
if you
whole
can-
county is already starting later than us. We are the earliest.
And we're the
start time
furthest away.
in the county.
Sparta and them are close to civilization.
We've
We're
been
way
told
out.
for years now that we could do 20 minutes without affecting sports. We've been told that for years. So I don't know why that would suddenly be a problem on sports.
I don't know who said
I
that.
was
can know
told
from my
that by
own
Steve
sport.
Tepnis. I was told that by the transportation person, no extra cost, no issue with getting the games on time. So that was the most we could possibly do was 20 minutes. So, and now
Well,
it's
I
in our
wasn't there
teacher's
for that, but-
contract. We have that flexibility to do. I understand there might be a portion of kids who don't like this change, but like I said before, a good change doesn't mean that if you find a handful of people who don't like it, that doesn't mean that it's not a good change. We have a whole middle school and an entire high school. Every single student will benefit from this. Maybe some won't or don't feel that they will. We don't know that they won't. And as for your study thing, yeah, maybe you can find that study, but I've already found like 100 studies. So if you can
With
find
more
one
time- more time
against
than
my
15
100,
minutes, though.
let's at least bring it to the
But the
table. Don't
studies,
tell me
the
you might
studies
find
don't
one.
explain why we weren't discussing this as a board, which we discuss everything as a
We
board.
have been
We've-
since 2019.
And a decision was made and told to the teachers and the board didn't even know.
Okay,
It's
so
been a
maybe
board-
Wait, but let's not
it's been a
conflate two
board
issues. If
priority
you want to, we can talk about communication and we can talk about the ultimate
Okay,
decision,
well,
but those
I-
are two separate conversations.
Yes.
I'm asking that we reverse this decision and go back to the schedule the way it should be.
Wait, before we do that, can I just have a clarification? Because I'm trying to follow all of this. The 15 minutes is due to busing? Or the 15 minutes was put in place to meet students' physiological needs? I'm getting a little confused. I got to figure out which way this argument is going.
Sounds like it was
And
both.
this is even a
Students'
board decision.
The-
I mean,
this-
I
was in
this is a board
I
decision.
taught in that building for 25 years, and there's another person that
No, I'm
taught
sorry, Chuck, before you go, I need to know if this was.
wellness.
I'm hearing it's wellness or it's busing. Like,
No,
this
there's
is a
no-
little all over the place. That's
It
why I
has,
just-
it has nothing to do with busing. You
Busing
need
just
the
moves
same amount
15
of,
minutes.
you need the same amount of bus
Statement that
drivers.
we just got was busing. So that's why I'm getting a
Oh,
little
well, that's not
confused.
true because
You
you need
wanna
the same amount of
clarify?
bus drivers.
I
also talked about wellness at the end of my statement.
Right, I know, I tried to follow. So it's both. So which came first, the the chicken or the egg. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What is this based upon? We're killing two birds with one stone? Or this is purely wellness and busing happened to fall in, or there was a busing issue and then it was like, oh, it'll meet students' needs.
If it's purely wellness, why is that a bad thing?
Right,
I'm
that's
just
true.
asking because I'm not understanding that. So if that could be clarified, so that way then the conversation can continue, that would be helpful.
The
I'm not
busing
sure
is-
the bearing it has on the conversation, but it's definitely, the wellness of our students is really important. I would say if we were gonna rank order them, I'd rank order them wellness and then busing.
Okay, thank you.
So I would challenge the paper that you cited. Because you cited a paper from the University of Minneapolis, which was done with, and this is completely where statistics comes into play here, okay? It was done with 1,200 students. Okay.
No, it was University of Minnesota.
I'm reading it right here. It was done with 1,200 students, grade 9 to 12.
That's not
And a
the-
change in start time from 7:45 to 8:45.
That's not the study. It was from University of Minnesota from April of 2021. It was 18,000 students.
Okay, so here's the same place that's doing it, and they come up with a totally different thing and it's an hour and 25 minutes later they did the study.
There have been so many studies with so many timeframes. There's some with 15 minutes, there's some with 20 minutes, there's some with an hour and a half. But the bottom line is every single one, it has positive benefits for kids.
Yeah.
Every single one. I haven't found one and I've looked. I
Right,
haven't
but
found
guys,
one that
this is
says there's no.
academia.
I don't
When
see it.
people in academia, when people are using research to defend a decision, you share, you cite it, you share it with
So
people.
find me something that
It's not
says.
my job to go find the research you're citing. If you are
No, I
making a
have the
point,
research on
then
my side
share it
because
with us.
he's-
I've been asking for a week for
Okay,
research.
there you
No one
go.
has even sent me a
May I
link.
respond for a moment?
Please.
Please.
2 years ago, when this was discussed more prominently with the then board, the research was shared with the board members. Reports were given by me on a regular basis via superintendent reports. All of those documents, with the exception of our new folks, were shared. That data hasn't changed.
Then please share it. We're
Again,
hearing of, yes. Karen,
Okay.
this is academia. If someone is using research to defend a decision, which I respect, I'm in academia, please share the research. As I think it was Ray stated, there's all different research. There's quality research, there's non-quality research. As Martin stated, you have to look at the study, you have to look at the samples, you have to look at the demographics. There's so many different points. Just because someone's doing research doesn't mean it's quality research.
I completely
And
agree with
if
that.
like, and I agree. So if someone is saying, I think it was Adina, there's new research from 2021, please share it. Because I'm more than happy to sit down. I have journals delivered to me at home. I'm constantly reading research for my own professional position. If people are going to sit here and argue and say, I have research, please, this is academia. Please share the research. That's all I'm going to ask about because this is.
Okay, well, you
So I
you
wanna-
were on
Very
the.
I would like to just open
Well,
it up
Ray-
to see
I
if there are
mean,
other board
Charles-
members
yeah,
who have not
Charles
had an
didn't get to
opportunity
speak.
to weigh in that would like to weigh in.
Charles?
I guess if I wanted to say, I was bottom of 5:15. I was 6 o'clock in the morning, get on the bus, drove all the way up to Conway. My bus ride was over an hour, I feel like, every day. So I understand the move. I guess my issue is, and I spoke with you about this, Karen, is I would have liked to see this if it was going to go more than 15 minutes. I don't mind if we did 15 minutes this year, another 15 minutes next year or whatever. I don't know if there's that great of a benefit for 15 minutes. But the other concern I have, if we're leaving 15 minutes, or we're going to school later 15 minutes, these kids that are in the sports, are they leaving class 15 minutes earlier for the buses? Because we still have, if the rest of the county's not doing this, you know, they're not moving their stuff, how do we make it to the games on time? And how do we, you know, because that's more of a concern to me. is-
Sure. The rest of the county's times start at 7:20
Okay.
to 7 to 5, 7:30, 7:35. And
In the
again,
afternoon, go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, and in the afternoon, that would match up. As a matter of fact, by moving it, it matches up with the time.
Athletic competitions don't typically start until 4. So there is travel time.
Mhm.
But our students have had ample time and will still have ample time to get to their competition and be prepared to start their game or their match. I mean, last year to dismiss at
155.
1:55, students are now dismissing at 2:10, right?
Yes, there have been, I've been in that building for my career, and there have been discussions about the starting time since I've been here, and it's been pushed back a couple of times. I think the vast majority of staff, and I think some of our students as well, believe that the high school starts too early. Now, Charles, yours is a nuanced position, but it's one that's probably appropriate, which is maybe 15 minutes doesn't make a difference, but it certainly is heading in the direction of acknowledging that we start too early. We've always had the situation where we have the tiered buses and we have a very large community. So we know that it's going to affect the back end. There's absolutely. So I know that all of these arguments, but I'm just going to put in perspective. The vast majority of people, I believe, who work in the high school, and I believe many of our students feel that we start too early. It's a simple truth.
Because we do. We do. It's undeniable.
And you're going to have
You
small
agree.
children, you're going to have small children going home in the dark.
We already have small
They
children.
already do
going
come home in the
the
dark.
Okay,
I
so
think we have-
Dr. Hold
Yeah.
on, just Charles had the opportunity to weigh in. I know that Joe is at home and it can be hard to jump in. I want to see if he wanted to weigh in at all. So everybody has an opportunity to speak.
He's muted.
Not anymore.
I'm unmuted now, and I don't think it's a good idea. I found out about it on the beach one day that we were changing our start times, and I looked like such a fool to, I don't know anything about it. Yeah, I am on the Board of Education. However, I don't think it's a good idea. The reason why I don't think it's a good idea is it affects all of our parents. I mean, our parents commute long distances to start their jobs. I know they have to get home as well too, but we have historically commuted long distances because that's where we live in Vernon, and it's a long way. And I think it impacts families more than you think, and it impacts our staff as well. Maybe it's favorable to the high school teachers, but I don't think it's favorable to the lower grades. Some of the teachers are getting out at 4:15, and then what? It limits tutoring opportunities. I'm not in favor of it. I would like to reverse it myself.
I would like to
Okay.
reverse it as well. So I'm asking if we could put a motion together
So
that we
I
can
don't think
reverse
we,
it.
So I'd like to-
I don't think we have the authority to do
I'm
that.
speaking to our president, Jen.
So I,
I'm
I wanted to make sure that everybody had the opportunity to weigh in.
I just have one more question,
ahead.
if I could. I was started asking it before, and this question is for Dr. McKay. You had said that you think that some of the students feel a certain way.
Yeah, I do.
Have we asked our kids?
No, we haven't.
I've asked some kids.
No, not some kids. Have
No,
we
I
asked?
agreed.
Have we asked the student body how they feel about it? Have we asked the whole faculty how they feel about it? These are the people who are affected the most.
Mhm.
So I would think the logical progression would be to ask them how they feel about it.
Mhm.
And we haven't done that.
I agree with Martin.
I mean, I would also just like to state how I found out about this, because I felt, like Joe said, I felt a little foolish. Someone asked me about it and I knew nothing about it, nothing. And then as a parent, I opened an email and read an email as a parent, and I thought to myself, that's weird. I didn't know school started then. That's how I found out. So I see your point. And then I know from commuting, if I get out to Route 23, 15 minutes later, my whole morning is just shot at that point. Granted, I am fortunate, my children are older, so it's not an issue. But if I had younger children, there's no way I'm such a short notice too, on like 3 to 4 weeks notice before school begins. That's the other thing. If this was an issue that was brought up in the spring or the winter of last year, I understand it was COVID, but possibly in the spring, this may be, then parents could adjust. But that's a big concern I have. I know driving out to Route 23, if I don't get over those railroad tracks to that light and shooting down Route 23, you just sit there. 15 minutes is a lifetime on Route 23.
We are not the Board of Commuters, we're the Board of Education. We're supposed to do what's best for our students. That's our primary directive, to do what's best for our students for their education, not to think about someone on Canisteo or whatever road. And also, just as many parents might be helped by this with their commute coming back. You don't know. We haven't
No,
done
I
that
don't
survey
know.
either. We're just guessing here. Oh, it might
Right,
be
but that
disruptive to some
builds on
parents.
Martin's
Might be
point. We're
great for some
guessing.
parents.
No one asked the parents, no one asked the faculty, no one asked the students.
No one asked
even
the Board of
us.
No one
Not
even
that
talked
we're
to
not
the Board of Ed.
administrative.
So I want to take an opportunity to also weigh in. I wanted to make sure I gave space for everybody to speak first. I look at this as two separate issues, and I said earlier, I don't think that we should conflate the two. I believe that we should have spoken about this last month prior to this decision being made. Because, I think that we know what issues rise to the level of the concern of the board, and this is one of them that has been a concern of the board for some time. So if we were going to make this change, we should have spoken about this sooner in the summer. That at the same time, I have for years supported later school start times. I believe that it is a well-studied topic, that it is generally accepted in most circles that adolescent teens need sleep and their bodies sleep later into the morning. It's based on their biology. I don't believe that 15 minutes is going to change the world on that, but I do believe that it is a step in the right direction for where I would like to see us and other districts around the county go, because it is certainly needed, in my opinion. So that is my position on this, but we've all shared our position, but it really is ultimately up to the administration.
But I'd like
on
to
what
make
they
a
recommend.
motion to reverse it.
It's not our, we
Jen,
don't, do we have that right?
I'm speaking to
Okay,
the
I'm
president.
saying, do we have that right? I
The
have the right
superintendent would
ask
have
that
to make a
question.
recommendation on that.
Well, I'm asking for a motion for that.
So the superintendent would have to make the recommendation to approve that.
She has the vast majority of the board members that are unhappy with the decision. That we didn't even discuss it. We weren't even told.
Being unhappy with not being, having it discussed is not the same as being unhappy.
We have a Board of Education for a reason, Jen.
Yeah. I
We should
know.
be able
About
to weigh
educating
in.
the students.
This was very embarrassing. I'm the vice president of the
It's not
board
supposed to
and
be
had a
about your
community
ego.
member call me.
It's not
and
supposed to
say-
be about your ego. It's supposed to be about
It
what's
has
best for
nothing to do with my
students.
ego. I had
Then why are
no
you talking
idea.
about you
I
not
had
having
no
any
idea that when they called me, I had no
That has
idea
nothing
that
to
there
do
was a
with what's
change.
best for our students. That has to do with something else. It has nothing to
I-
do with what's best.
I
Mr.
agree that-
Annunziato?
Yes.
I'd like to put a motion on the table for the board to compel our superintendent to reverse her decision.
I second that.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a procedural clarification from the board secretary. Does the board have the authority to make a motion to direct the superintendent of that?
I don't believe so. I can try to reach out to Nathaniel. I've never seen this before, so I don't.
Yeah, that is not something I've ever seen before, but
We
I'm certain.
absolutely
I would like the
can make a
motion to go through and we can throw it out if it's no good.
Yes.
It has a second on the table. It's up for discussion now, and then it has to go for a roll call.
Okay, so there is a motion and a second. I would like to ask the board to consider for 5 minutes to table that motion, so we could take a very brief recess, and I will call the board attorney right now and ask her if that is something that we can do. So I'm gonna make a motion to table that,
Second.
okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion's tabled. I'm gonna also make a motion to ask for a 5-minute recess.
Second? Any
Okay,
motion, sorry.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the board is in a 5-minute recess.
Joe, you're here?
Are we on? Okay, great. All right, can I have a motion to return to open session?
Motion?
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second. Second by Mr. Zimmerman. Okay, I did have an opportunity to call the board attorney and she has advised that that is permissible. So thank you, everybody, for letting me clarify that. on a
And thank you for
procedure-
checking.
Yeah,
Justin. That was
on a procedural basis. So there was a motion on the table, which was tabled by the motion was made by Mr. O'Donnell and seconded by Ms. Mitchell to direct the superintendent of schools to reverse the school start times to the previous.
I'm sorry, Justin, what was the word? Say that again?
Direct the superintendent
No,
of
the word was
schools.
not direct. It was compel. Two very different words. We can't direct the superintendent to change her mind on
Yes,
this.
you can.
Yeah,
we can.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't think
because
we
you're
could.
not
I
telling me.
apologize.
Nathaniel said we
Yeah,
can.
by law, and I mean, I knew the answer, but I'm glad that you talked to the attorney. By law, the board by majority consensus can direct the superintendent to do just about anything.
Except for personnel matters.
Right,
Is what
yes,
is
yeah.
what the board attorney
Right.
advised. She said
She
we
is.
cannot
She did.
direct on personnel matters.
Yes, I know. That's why I made the motion.
Okay.
So I'm going to, I don't know if I have to remove my motion to reset,
It's been tabled, so it's tabled.
No, but I use the word compel.
Okay, so would you like to make a new motion?
Direct.
I'd like to make a new motion to direct
The
the
superintendent.
superintendent to change the time back to what it was before.
I second.
Okay, that's been motioned by Mr. O'Donnell, and second by Ms. Mitchell. And questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say that given that pretty much most of the people on this board have agreed with the science in the past, and it seems as if what's swaying certain people is the fact that they weren't told is pretty sad. I think that we should be doing what's best for our students and not have our own pride in the way of that.
I would just like to add that I'm disappointed that we're sitting here micromanaging decisions
That too.
that have been talked about for years.
And micromanaging at all.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata,
No.
Mr. Semaglia,
I'm sorry, what does a no mean and what does a yes mean?
A no means that you're not voting to direct the superintendent to change the.
Okay,
Yes
thank
means
you.
Are voting to director.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Semaglia,
I just want to say, Karen, I think this is your decision, I think. This is what we're gonna grade you on, so I'm gonna say this is a no. It's up to you.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
No,
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
No.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes,
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank
Go
you.
back to
Yes, item number
mask
5.
mandate. Okay. Governor's Order 251 indicates that all school districts must comply with the mandatory use of face masks by student, staff, and visitors in the indoor portion of school premises. The mandate, as you know, also notes exceptions such as extreme heat indoors, when a person is unable to breathe, when an IEP or 504 precludes a face mask, when performing an activity that cannot be done with a face mask, such as eating or drinking, playing an instrument, or if someone is engaged in high-intensity physical activity or unable to operate equipment or execute a task. The Vernon Township School District, as a public school district, is required to comply with the governor's executive order. All Sussex County schools are following the mask mandate. Out of abundance of concern for the spread of COVID-19 and to keep many unvaccinated persons safe, such as those under age 13 who have not yet been approved for the vaccine, we will be following this order. I'm grateful to our faculty and staff. Our anecdotal data puts the percentage of vaccinated employees at between 80 and 90% of our district employees. This has been done to prevent the spread of COVID, to minimize their own risk of getting ill, and to protect our children, our district's most valuable assets. I think somebody reported earlier this evening about statistics of vaccine rates of high school and middle school students. Our high school, I think it was Noreen Brethold, pardon me if I have that wrong. Our high school actually is over, for our students, is over 40%. Our middle school is about 20%. So our rates are higher than the data that was shared for outside of our community. I'm aware of the concerns of mask wearing and the challenges associated with wearing a mask for prolonged periods of time. To that end, mask breaks will be utilized often, and we are encouraging as much use of our outdoor areas as possible. Last year and this year, we have outdoor tents set up for lunches as well as outdoor classroom spaces. I know that masks are not required at the mall or in food stores, and that can be frustrating for many. However, the mask mandate clearly extends to all public schools in New Jersey. Children need to be in school with their peers and teachers, learning and socializing. I think I'd rather have our students in school with masks than not here. I also wanted to respond to Ms. Guzman. She had a couple of questions. She wanted to know why in the spring that we were not wearing masks and we are now. In June, we were green, according to the Cali index. That's the COVID activity level index. I shared some of that data with the board in June of last year. The whole state is yellow right now based on the Delta variant and COVID. The Delta variant in Sussex County last week, according to the CDRSS report that I get weekly, made up 80% of cases in Sussex County. So the Delta variant is the dominant variant that we're seeing all over the country, but locally as well. And the COVID activity level index is based on transmission rates, COVID-like illnesses, et cetera. And I think the other comment one of our family members had was about social distancing versus socially active. I don't want the public to misunderstand the importance of the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant, the activities of our schools, and that we can be physically distanced from each other, wear masks, and still promote social engagement for our children, which is essential to their development. As far as the mask mandate goes, I was again asked to have this on the agenda. As a public school, we are required to follow the governor's order 251.
Any input or comments or questions from the board?
I said a comment about our question actually. So if we're all wearing masks, again, this is required by the state that we do this. Are we gonna do, I think last year we had some time when the kids can take mask breaks. And I remember some of the board meetings towards the end of the year where there seemed to be a discrepancy between, like, I think one of the parents brought up walk run, where some schools were saying they could wear the mask and some weren't. So are we gonna have something more formal put out there?
This order is more clear than last year in the spring because the mask mandate is for indoors only in schools. So that means that outside at recess, outside at lunch, outside for walk run, outside before children enter the building. Of course, on the bus, they have to wear a mask, right? But outside, masks are not required. That should be clearer, I hope.
Yep.
So will we still try to do as many classes outside as we can?
Yeah, when Dr. McKay and I met with the administrative team yesterday, tents will be going back up. We're really encouraging the use of outdoor classrooms as much as possible. I mean, what we have learned about COVID is that fresh air circulation, distance, and mask wearing are the best, and hand washing and hand sanitizing are the most important preventative measures that we can take. The shields that we had and the face shields and the additional PPE, the wiping down of surfaces is not necessarily something that combats the virus because we know it doesn't exist or live on surfaces. It's still transmitted, in the air through particles. So yes, we're encouraging the use of outdoor classrooms, outdoor learning spaces. We know that it gets cold up here quickly, but we're going to try to maximize the use of our outdoor time as much as possible.
I have one more question because you just brought up a speech. So speech was a big thing. With the mask, they can't really see them forming the words. with the shields. It's hard to hear the kids. Do we have a new plan to address that for this year now?
I mean, a lot of our speech teachers were using clear masks so that students could see the way the mouth is formed and so that they can work on their diction and pronunciation as the students were going through speech. Unfortunately, the mask mandate doesn't talk about the removal of masks during speech class because it's not one of those categories. And the things are things you can't do with a mask on, right? You can speak with a mask on, even though maybe we don't speak well or we can't understand each other as well. According to the guidance, and again, this is the state, this is not the district, things like aerobic activity, eating can't be done with a mask on. They have not given us specific guidance on speech right now. Our teachers did a phenomenal job last year of modifying their practices so that children could learn and the teachers could monitor the children. So our teachers are really, really skilled in working with our students. I'm sure they've already established a ton of workarounds. I don't believe one is completely removing the mask for the entire class period, but I'm sure that they're working on ways to facilitate speech lessons with children.
Additional questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you.
Good. Recommendation 1, it is recommended that the board approve the following faculty, staff resignations, retirements, termination leaves, transfers, assignment changes, appointments, stipend, salary adjustments, student teaching mentoring as listed. It begins at the bottom of page 3, goes to page 4, 5, 6, and the top of page 7.
And the addendum.
And the addendum, sorry about that.
Okay. Your motion for recommendation 1.
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second. Second by Mr. Zimmerman. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Looking on here, it looks like the Italian teachers retiring in December. That's halfway through the school year. What's our plan? Are we replacing her? Do we have somebody? Just, I'm curious as to what the plan is, given that kids are going to be taking a full semester of Italian,
Absolutely.
I mean, a full year, and what's going to happen halfway through.
We have started to explore that. As we've talked about before with world language, there's not folks out there. But we are exploring that with people who we would certify through the alternate route program, who work in international schools, et cetera. So we do have one lead on that, and Vinny and I have been, Mr. Gagliostro and I have been exploring that. And we will pursue that because we do have a few months before we lose our Italian teacher.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you for asking that question, because it does point to the difficulties when some of our valued employees retire.
That's one of the world languages. And
World
then high school
language is
science.
really tough.
Those are some of the
What would
toughest
happen?
certs.
What would happen if you don't replace? Do these
You would
kids- do
have
the kids-
to, a couple of years ago, one of our local schools went through this with their German program, and it made the news. What you have to do is you have to continue to offer that. So you would go to an EduCia program, a computer program, and then you'd have to have someone working as a teacher to help with that. You might be able to find someone who's not certified in the field, but at least is comfortable with world language, Romance languages, because Italian and Spanish. And then you try to get through, but then you have to make an announcement to the community that if we can't find anybody, we have to start moving the ones into a new program and possibly the twos into a new program as we no longer have anything. But I'm putting the cart before the horse. We are pursuing this with, like I said, one lead that we do have, thanks to the Italian teacher presently who is retiring. And we will continue to do that. But we're struggling with all of our world language.
Does the EduCia program offer something that's the second half? Would that create a problem?
No, what we would do is we would work with the teacher who is retiring to say, where are you? And then modify it based on the units in EduCia.
Okay, I got it.
And we have a license with them.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Luther? Yes. Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Item 2, it is recommended that the board approve the following list of teachers and child study team staff as part of the recertification SCM Safe Crisis Management Training at a rate of $143 per person per recertification training at 8 hours.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lutner, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conklin. Questions or comments? Can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin.
Yes.
Mrs. Luther.
Yes.
Item 3, it is recommended that the board approve the following list of part-time aides as part of the initial or recertification SCM Safe Crisis Management Training. Training will be paid at the indicated hourly rate. Initial training is 16 hours, recertification is 8 hours. The chart is on the bottom of page 8, continues on page 9, and also on the addendum.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 3?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Zimmerman. Questions or comments? Okay, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Abstain.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Item 4, it is recommended that the board approve the following appointment for additional 2021 summer CST work.
We have a motion for recommendation 4.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lutner, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? Can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Item 5, it is recommended that the board approve the following list of teachers to provide instruction at summer professional development sessions for certified staff on August 25th and/or 26th, pending enrollment.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 5?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lutner, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet.
Yes.
Item
Motion.
6, I'm sorry. Item 6, it is recommended that the board approve the following staff for athletic site managers at the high school as needed and the total hours for all site managers not to exceed 150 hours.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 6?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lutner. Questions or comments?
I just have a quick question, and I always say the only dumb question is one not asked, but what's an athletic site manager?
Additionally, we've given a stipend to someone who assists the athletic director. So if the athletic director is at a meet somewhere else or goes to another athletic event at another school, that person is in charge at the high school. And then when multiple things are going on, like it's a football game and a soccer game, et cetera, they make sure that the referees are paid, et cetera. When we had our cuts, we went to Mr. Foley and said, we really, let's try to bring this down a little bit. So he agreed to have it be an hourly based on when we need a person. So that's what this is. What this is the person will be helping when we have multiple events going on at the high school at the same time. And Mr. Foley feels that he needs them. So I want to credit him for his concern about the budget as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata.
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Item 7, it is recommended that the board approve the concurrent enrollment program administrative agreement between Sussex County Community College and Vernon Township High School for the fall 21 and spring 22 academic year.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 7?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin, second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Motion
Item-
carries.
I'm sorry. Item 8, it is recommended that the board approve permitting the following student to attend Vernon Township Public Schools according to Board of Education Policy 5111. Student 10923, child of an employee of the district, be permitted to attend the high school as an 11th grader for the 21-22 school year without payment of tuition.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 8?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin,
Second.
second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata.
Yes.
Item 9, it is recommended that the board approve permitting the following student to remain in Vernon Township Public Schools according to Board of Education Policy 5111. Student 12332 be permitted to attend the high school as a 12th grader for the 21-22 school year without payment of tuition.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 9?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Coughlin. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia.
Yes.
Item 10 on the addendum, it is recommended that the board approve the following for summer CST meetings at the rate of $40 per meeting.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 10?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin.
Yes.
Thank you. Item H, Ms. Linsky.
For discussion, we have policies and regulations. Alert number 223 came out, and everyone has a copy of the policies. And we are going to have a discussion, and then the first vote would be at the public meeting next week, and then the second vote would be at the work session in September.
Yes.
After reviewing, does anyone have questions on alert 223?
Okay, seeing none.
Okay. We have bylaw 0155.1, board member participation at board meetings using electronic device. I gave everybody a copy of the new bylaw. And have tried to put in the concerns about having one being able to participate remotely one time per year. So if you want to review that policy, I'll bring it up for first reading next meeting.
Oh, Ms. Linsky, could I just ask one adjustment to be made to close out if it was here? One of the amendments is in red, the first up on top, or for childcare issues. Can we also add elder care?
Sure.
Yeah, children and elders. Thank you.
I don't remember talking about voting on it to give people permission. Was that something we talked about?
I don't remember that either. Because it
Which-
talks
We're
about,
told to explore the policy on it, and you have to put You have to put it's not a policy, it's a bylaw. We didn't have one prior to COVID. COVID hit, and through the emergency, we were able to do remote meetings.
No, I know all that. I meant the actual, I'm sorry, I just mean that in the policy we're voting on or adopting, it now says that every time somebody wants to be virtual, we vote on whether or not they can be virtual, which I didn't think we discussed. And that seems kind
Okay.
of weird.
It was Strauss Esme, that was their proposed policy, so that's why,
Yeah.
I edited it and.
Do we
Yeah.
need to do it that way, though? I mean.
No, we can change our
No.
policy.
Why don't we just say we'll
whatever we
notify,
want.
in the event a board member is unable to attend a meeting in
Because I don't
person
wanna- I
due
don't
to
wanna
the
vote on
allowable
Giving people
reasons,
permission.
the board member must have, they should just notify the board president,
Yeah.
whoever the board president is.
Yeah.
That's what the word is.
Yeah,
Does
just
everybody
notify
agree with
them.
that?
Yes,
You know,
Yeah,
if you're gonna be there virtually, let me know so I can let Matt know.
yeah, that's what we've been
So we
doing.
can- Yeah.
So this is only once during the school year. You can
Yes.
only do
Correct,
this
that was
once,
the
so
compromise.
workshops, regular meetings. you
That
only do it
was,
once.
that was a compromise, because at the last meeting there was, or when we discussed this, it might have been the one before that. There was two schools of thought. Some people wanted everybody here in person so we could have better, more cohesive conversations. And others felt that that's great, but life also happens at the same time, so we should be flexible. So the compromise was give everybody that allowance, but let's all try to be here. as
So
often.
can we make an additional allowance for work-related stuff? Because reality is that's out of my control and I do travel for work. But to only do it once during a whole entire school year, I like to make the meetings. So, I mean, I guess I could just jump on as a regular taxpayer and watch the meeting, but not have any input. But I think in this day and age, once is a little bit, it's a little bit restricting.
That was the
Especially
point, though,
because
right?
I'm speaking
Yeah,
from a personal
Oh,
note
yeah,
that.
listen, there were other board members, there were board members who didn't want to have any cap on it. So there's two schools of thought for sure. So it's really up to us and what the majority currently wants to do.
Yeah, I'm just speaking for myself here,
Yeah.
knowing what I go through for work. It might be a Tuesday and all of a sudden on a Thursday, I have to go up to Massachusetts or something like that to be at a customer site. So, I mean, once during the school year, I will probably do more than once if it's offered, but only if I have to, because I'm here. If I don't just sit home and jump on there, I'm here. So I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but I think once is a little bit restrictive.
Yeah, I'm open to.
There were some people who didn't want to have it at all, and that's why we came up with
This was the
cap.
compromise.
And is that only during the school year? So in the summer, you can do it 6 times?
I think during each school year, it just means July 1st and June 30th.
And,
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
one day.
So it's not September to June.
No. They're going on an
No, we were just
academic
talking
year.
about, an academic calendar year.
I don't know, why don't we just, yeah.
No, I'm just saying from my.
I mean-
point, once is a little restrictive and,
I'll be honest, but I wanted it restricted.
Yeah, there were,
I mean, people don't come. It's easier not to come if you don't want to make it. I don't know,
the feeling,
certainly
yeah.
to try to get people here.
Okay.
So-
I'll just be with the public and make
The
public
feeling that,
comment.
was that it was more effective if people were here in person. That's how the conversation started. I don't know, I could have gone either way a little bit on it, but I do agree that it's more effective if people are here. And so the idea was to cap it to, to one, so that you would really make an effort to be here, which we all,
Am I
I
hearing
mean-
twice? Do we want to change the number, or?
Yeah, I'm willing to move it up only
we
because.
can bat it around, yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows what's gonna happen in the
Well,
future.
I don't want Martin going on as a taxpayer, so let's move it.
Yeah, I think
He's
I
already
think
had
there
to
was,
do things as
you know,
taxpayer.
Ray said he was one of the board members who wanted the restriction because there is value to having everybody at the table. But there's also,
I think it's really
we have
important
to be
that,
flexible.
that
There's
we're
also a
all
lack of
here,
value by
you know?
having the board member not here because he can't jump on.
Right.
She.
I think
Or she's- Sorry, my bad.
yeah, wow, that was bad, Martin.
You give me a chance.
We also have Martin, I think, was concerned with like executive session. Sometimes it's hard to hear when somebody's on a Zoom call and when everybody's in a meeting. So if we had too many of those meetings.
To give
where
them the
people were remote, it
conversation
would be harder.
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
can
is
we
true.
address the concern? Would everybody want to give a little more flexibility by allowing it twice per school year?
I'm fine with twice.
Do I hear three?
Oh, for God. Be nice.
Okay. All right, so
Now you're
we'll
pushing
change
Go ahead,
that.
yeah.
We'll
All right,
change
so
that to
two
twice
times.
before we have the first reading next week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
all right. All right, Ms. Linsky, P164811. Any questions?
164811, right? So we did not have a policy that addressed, I don't like that policy, you can read it and go either way. Basically, the way I read that policy is that people can participate via YouTube. You actually have.
Oh, wait, no, you're talking about 0167A.
Yes, did I jump?
You jumped
So you
ahead of
jumped-
the
it's all right.
Are there
Oh,
any
sorry.
questions on 164811 or 5460?
Bless you.
Thank you.
What was the change in 5460? Because I didn't see anything in red.
There were two, I'm sorry. There were two changes, I think they're in black.
Oh, okay. Oh, is
At
that
the
because
first
she,
page-
Ms. Linsky got rid of all our colored ink?
Yes.
Oh.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Mine's
Anyway,
in red.
no red.
Oh,
Letter A, the 130 credits was something the board actually voted on in the spring, but it was never put into policy. It's just reflecting the last board's motion regarding the 130 credits.
okay.
There is one other change on the second page. So we spoke
I
with, I'm sorry, that's in bold. It basically speaks to if a child is in their high school senior year and they're on track to meet the district's high school graduation requirements, that they have the ability to leave after they've completed the school day. Meaning it could be a half day or a portion of the day. They still have to fulfill the requirement, which is 4 hours under the requirements. But we do have many students who've met the graduation requirements to graduate, but would like to go to work or would like to study at SECC, and we're trying to accommodate those students. This is a request from the high school that we've reflected in the policy based on Strauss's wording and recommendation.
Okay, can you clarify the first sentence there that it says 125 credits?
Oh, number 11, and that has to be changed to 130. That's
Does
a
that
good
have to be
catch.
130?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We missed that one. I was talking about the bolded statement underneath. That's the change. That's the addition, actually.
Okay, and the change speaks to the parent requesting that their child be permitted to leave high school after completion. What if the student is 18 years old?
I would have to confirm with our attorney. I'm pretty sure we have a policy on that already. But I don't know the contents of it. I'd have to get clarification on the permission as far as allowing a student to quote, sign themselves out. I
'Cause I-
don't know
yeah.
the.
I don't know how you
rules.
can require parental consent for
Yeah.
an 18-year-old
I
to
don't
leave the
think we
building.
can.
Yeah.
But they'd also have to qualify under the provisions of this addition, meaning that they would have had to meet the graduation requirements and have a need to depart early. I can get clarification on that from our attorney.
Any other questions on these two policies? Okay, 0167A, that is the policy and public participation in board meetings. Ms. Linsky caught that when we spoke about changing the public participation format to no longer allowing the email comments, we said that we were going to stop that after the next policy went into effect because of the prior policy, but she caught that the prior policy doesn't speak to email comments at all. So that was something we were allowing based on the governor's now expired guidance on public meetings. So I think your point in bringing this up was that we can stop the email comments effective.
You can stop them today and we will advertise in the future that the email comments will
Right.
not. We won't include that.
But we will be allowing comments, public, by the members of the public attending virtually through the live stream.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that?
Mhm.
Because it says here by submitting comments or asking questions through the district's YouTube channel, same rules, yada, yada. And the last line is, in order for them to be read into the record. I thought the idea was so that nobody sitting at this table has to read somebody else's comments. The idea was to still have the Zoom open so that the member of the public can make their comments directly. Is that where we're headed? Or
Yes.
did I-
Yes.
Okay.
So we're
I
still
And
didn't-
this
going
is
to
just-
allow
This
them.
is a very confusing, like, I think you guys wrote this policy. This
We
didn't
did,
come from
'cause-
Strauss Esme. So reading it, it's very difficult to interpret.
So
So,
saying about our writing.
sorry.
That we're not
I think we
lawyers.
threw it together in a board.
So I would say you take out by submitting comments, or just asking questions, right? Members of the public may participate in public participation portion of the meeting by asking questions through the district's YouTube
No,
channel.
that's not what we want to do.
No,
No,
through Zoom.
yeah, through the Zoom.
It has to
Through
be through
Zoom.
Zoom,
Yep, okay.
because we don't want anybody at the table to have to
This
read somebody else's comments.
0167A is expired as of,
Yes, that's why I
February
took
1st.
off February 1, because it
Um,
expired.
so we really should just modify 0167. Right?
I guess we could. I'm not sure how that reads.
I don't have a copy of that.
Right,
in
I
front of
don't
me.
either, but I can look into that.
And we just need a line allowing public participation through the Zoom live stream.
Okay.
Can
But-
we get a draft of that for the next board meeting, over email prior to that? You know,
Yes,
So that way we can vote on that at the next meeting.
Justin, does that same policy dictate when within our agenda, people can make public comment for stuff, let's say on the agenda and off the agenda? Does that same policy dictate when that will be, or is that just
That's a
something
practice.
That's just a practice.
Yeah,
okay.
I believe that's just a practice that we implemented. I don't believe that's delineated in the
Mm-hmm.
policy anywhere, but we have to look. Did you have a comment on that?
Only because, I mean, it's off of what we're talking about here. It's not even on the same subject really, but I was always a proponent of taking all the public comment at the beginning there. You know, these people who want to make comments that aren't on, it's going to be 11 o'clock at night.
Yep.
These people have been gracious enough to sit here the whole time waiting for us to go through a whole bunch of stuff. So, I mean, how much longer would it take in the beginning of the meeting for all public comment? Maybe another 20 minutes? And, you know, if people have to go home, they go home. You know, it's not like we're trying to keep them here.
I completely agree with you. I think it's something that's been brought up in the past and I supported in the past, but it has been shut down by the majority, but we have a different board, different members. So that might be something
Might
that
be a
we
good
want to,
agenda item to discuss
Yeah.
at some point in time.
we
because-
should discuss that at,
It's also not required. I mean, the public comment's required, of course. But I've never seen it in my previous districts of having it parsed out between two different sections. on the
Right.
agenda.
I completely agree. I think that it's more respectful to the members of our
Yeah.
community to allow them to part,
Yeah.
you know,
They
we
got
signed
lives,
up,
they got
we
kids, they
signed
gotta
up
be
for this,
home,
you know, we knew we would be here late on Thursday nights twice a month.
And sometimes we create that lateness ourselves.
Yeah, but we have members of the public who have important things to talk to us about, so.
I think it would be great to let people speak about anything in the beginning, but
Yeah.
there should also be public comment at the end because sometimes they want to comment on what they heard.
That's a good
And
point.
If you
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah, we
if
can
you don't
keep
allow
two.
them.
But just
Yeah.
get rid of
But
the
it's pretty much
prescription.
open
Otherwise, they
session
have
for
to
both.
listen to us
Just
and they
open
can't say
vote.
anything, right?
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great idea.
And I remember, I mean, building on what Justin said, it's true. Once we had a student who waited the whole end and then stood up and said, I'm a student, I have to get up and go to the high school. We were all like.
And that's why we
when
changed it. Yeah.
Changed it. We said any students with anything to
Yeah.
say about anything, you can go first so they could get home. But yeah, so we could
So-
change it.
Is-
For direction for us as we have to develop the agenda.
Yeah,
Is that something that the board is moving to? Is that a consensus? Is that something you'd like us to implement next time? Just
What do you guys
give us some direction.
I would
I'm-
support the change
Yeah.
early and
Charles.
later.
Absolutely.
Joe,
Good.
is that a Ned?
Yeah.
um,
He's
head
nodding.
Nod?
We got the
Oh,
Joe
he's falling
nod.
asleep.
Okay, Teresa,
Yeah, I think what Jen said, we should still have two, but open for anything, both of them.
Yes.
okay, great.
I would support that. I would definitely support that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that that's great.
Good, thank
We've
you.
talked about this in the past and it's a long time
No,
coming.
I think it's important. I mean, like, why would they want to sit through that whole thing?
Thank you for
Yeah.
bringing it up. I'm sorry. to-
Why do you guys want to sit? Just get up now. Go ahead.
We're almost there.
We're gonna,
We're hurrying.
okay. All right, and then for the next meeting, we are not gonna be accepting email comments. We should modify our public advertisement.
Yep.
And for the next agenda, we'll modify the public participation section. There's consensus on both those. Okay. Okay. Recommendations.
It is recommended that the board approve professional development travel that complies with the provisions of NJSA 18A11-12.
Do we have a motion for recommendation one?
So moved.
Ms. Coughlin, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments?
I have a comment. I just want to say thank you to the administration. If you look under the third column there, every single one of the items are being funded by grants. So kudos to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Smaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther.
Yes.
Recommendation two.
So
It's
moved.
recommended the board approve the chapter 192, 193 non-public services agreement between Vernon Township Board of Ed and Sussex County Ed Services
Okay,
Commission.
so can we have a motion for recommendation two?
Motion.
I just,
By Ms. Coughlin.
Second.
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 Second by Ms. Mitchell.
Oh
Questions
my
or
God.
comments? I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have, I could just say approve the rest.
Oh, no, if you want to read the first sentence, that's fine.
Okay.
Roll call vote for recommendation two on the agenda.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
abstain?
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
It is recommended the board approve the agreement for ancillary educational services for the 2021-2022 school year between the Vernon Township Public Schools and the Sussex County Ed Services Commission.
Can we have a motion for recommendation three on, as it's written on the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin.
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could you please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Abstain?
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Recommendation four.
It is recommended the board approves professional support non-public services agreement between Vernon Township Board of Education and Ed Services Commission of Morris County.
Can we have a motion for recommendation four on the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin,
Second.
second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Abstain?
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet.
Yes.
Motion carries.
It is recommended the board approve Challenger Fence, Inc. to install fencing at Glad Meadow School for $10,582.
Can we have a motion for recommendation five?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments?
Just like to say this is a success with communication with the Special Education Parent Advisory Group brought this concern to our attention to keep students safe. And now here it is, come to fruition after a few months. So this is a success story. So thank you to all involved.
Thank you, Teresa.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Motion carries.
It is recommended the board approve a service consulting agreement with ECTS Educational Consortium for telecommunication savings in the amount of $1,200 to assist in the preparation of the applications and documentation for the EFC for mobile hotspots and Chromebooks to be funded at
motion.
100%.
We have a motion for recommendation 6.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell,
Second.
second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments?
Nice
Seeing-
grant, Matt.
Good job, Mr. Shea.
Thank
Yay.
you.
Where is he?
Can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia?
Yeah.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes,
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes,
It is recommended the board approve playground installation at Glen Meadow Middle School in the amount of $11,391.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 7 on the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Ms.
Second.
Mitchell, second by Ms. Coughlin. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Semaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Abstain.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
yes,
Mr. Zimmerman?
yes,
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
It is recommended the board approve, accept the funds for Title 1A SIA in the amount of $14,900.
We have a motion for recommendation 8.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Coughlin,
Second.
second by Ms. Mitchell. Can we please have a roll call vote? Oh, questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
yes,
Mr. Zimmerman?
yes,
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia?
Yes.
It is recommended the board refuse the funds for Title III in the amount of $2,997.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 9?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Coughlin, second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments?
why?
Why?
You
You can't accept it unless it's over $10,000. You have to put a consortium together with other schools. Other schools that we've reached out to are not interested in doing that because it's such a minimal amount. The federal government gives this grant out, and usually districts should not get more than $10,000. So this is sort of standard operating procedure on this one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other questions or comments, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes,
Mr. Zimmerman?
yes,
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
It is recommended that the board accept the funds awarded through the Anita M. Lowry 21st Century Community Learning Center's competitive grant in the amount of $350,000 for the initial project year.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 10?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Smaglia. Questions or comments? Fantastic work on that. I mean, that's fantastic.
Bravo.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, could we please get a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
yes,
Mr. Zimmerman?
yes,
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Happily, yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
It is recommended the board approve the application and accept the funds for the American Rescue Plan IDEA consolidated in the amounts listed below. 131 for $1,000 for IDEA basic and $11,236 IDEA preschool.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 11?
moved.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Mitchell, second by Ms. Coughlin. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
yes,
Mr. Zimmerman?
yes,
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
It's recommended that the board approve to move funds from the operating account to the food service account for delinquent accounts reclassified to bad debt as follows. Inactive adults, $390.25. Students, $21,127.24.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 12?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second. Second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments? So this was something that we discussed at our last work session. This format of structuring this in this way, is this permissible with the auditors? Have we
Yes,
looked into this with the county?
Yeah, we cannot subsidize the food service account. So if there is delinquent accounts, the money needs to be moved from the general account into the food service account.
Okay, so you can formally write it off as bad debt because
Yes,
many of these accounts are going back years,
yes.
right? Okay.
So this is students that didn't pay for lunch, basically,
Yes.
and it goes back years. So this isn't 1 year, this is
So that, yeah, so this
accumulated
is
over
something that,
time.
yeah, the board and the business office and the central administrators have talked about this for the last few years, and it kind of came to a head with COVID, but stopped because we started getting federal funding for lunch. But it was, how do we go about collecting bad debts on student accounts? Because there's some districts that follow through with the practice of turning off access to online portals. Many districts will give students a alternative lunch, which many board members have expressed significant opposition to, because what would happen in some districts is a student would get all the way through a line with a tray of food, go to charge their lunch, see that their account was overdrawn, and then that food, which is already on their tray, would be taken away from them, and they'd be given a cheese sandwich or a peanut butter sandwich, which is, you're shaming the student for circumstances beyond their control. That, or that at least that's the feeling of many board members, from just trying to give you the background of this conversation.
If we have a student that's continually doing this, does somebody reach out to the parents and maybe try to
Every 2 weeks,
assist
they get
them?
a notice.
What's that?
Every 2 weeks, they get a notice.
No, I mean, like, to reach
Yeah.
out to the parents, maybe the parents have a little bit of an issue going on, or maybe they need to really apply for subsidized
Yes, so
lunch or something like
so
that. Maybe
that's-
they're having,
They
maybe
do.
they're a little too
We
proud
do.
to do it. Maybe we could kind of get them going or something,
Well, right now, we have free lunches.
Right,
for
so it doesn't
everyone
matter.
From
Yeah, but
last
we-
year and this year.
and the direction in the past was that building administrators and the business office would reach out
Oh,
to these
good,
families.
good.
And we also want to take the socioeconomic needs of our families in town. And one of the attitudes always was, if by law the children have to be in school,
Mhm.
they can't just get up and leave, then they're cutting.
Right.
We really should be, feeding them at minimum.
Right.
Can't start.
And the next policy alert, you're going to see more on food service.
Right, can we please, so we have a motion in a second.
Yes, you do.
Yes,
Oh,
okay,
we
can
do.
we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
No,
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
It is recommended the board approve the following financial reports, a list of checks, with the hand checks, transfers, and purchase
Can we have a
orders.
motion for recommendation
So
13?
moved.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Coughlin. Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
yes,
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mr. Semaglia,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Abstain is noted.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries, and that is, there's nothing on the agenda. So that is it. That was a marathon. Okay, itemized for public participation for items on the agenda or other business.
Mrs. Zapula, before you speak, Trevor, thank you very much to Trevor, to your patience and for being here.
And
You,
can I also
you really
say
are amazing.
What
We
a
don't-
tall,
I didn't know.
fine young man you've become. I haven't seen you in person in so long. It's great to see you. You look great, Trevor.
So, hi, my name is Karen Zapula from Highland Lakes, and I'm here to speak about the rotating schedule at the high school. And this is why my son came with me and sitting so patiently to wait. So according to the Department of Education, school opening is supposed to be more flexible in the beginning of the year for your students. I'm not hearing anything about being flexible on this schedule. Also being told Trevor will get used to this schedule is not right to say. You have no idea what may work for one student, doesn't mean it will work for all. This is why we have an IEP for students. By saying Trevor will get used to this is saying he will have no choice but to get used to the schedule. If that's the case, then you're not following your school policy, if I did read this correctly, number 2310, in the student grouping dated April 1st, 05. I am still waiting for answers why parents and students of freshmen were not being told about this rotating schedule. Back when our kids were making their schedules up, we could have been informed how this was going to work. Students and parents could have discussed this with their caseworkers for students who have IEPs And for those students who do not have IEPs, they could be sitting down with their counselors and discuss this. You did not come up with a plan that would work for these students. You decided to jump right into this and not consider the students that this will affect with or without special needs. If you really care how this may affect some of our students, your students, then you would come up with a plan that would work for all students. Plan A, Plan B, rotating, not rotating. Parent public input is supposed to be done. There was no parent public input done, no survey on rotating schedules for freshmen. Parents had no idea. I went through all the Board of Ed meetings the past year, no discussion about rotating schedules. I'm sorry, but without a Plan B for any student, this plan may not work for them. You're setting them up for failure and to induce more anxiety. If you would like, you could even reach out to the Department of Education, Kim Murray, Acting Director of Special Needs. She may be able to come up with some kind of plan to help to put in place for those students that, again, the schedule may not work for them. Finding the option for scheduling more difficult than needed. The SEL program, Social Emotional Learning, helps students be successful, is very important. If you're already causing stress to some of your students, how is this going to help them? You can offer an aid or give them a new schedule every day. This will eradicate or not fix the solution. You're causing the same problem. I do hope you will reconsider your plan and come up with a Plan B. Here's a suggestion. Here, to let freshmen keep a set schedule for the first marking period. Slowly introduce them to a rotating schedule. This schedule may cause a lot of stress and school refusal. This is not the best way to start out a new school year. I also would like to know if this plan was submitted to the county and the state for approval. If it was, I would like to see a copy of the approval plan and if I may pick it up tomorrow morning. If nobody approved this plan, then I would like to know how you came up with this. And do you have a Plan B? Has this been a research house based plan? We are still in this pandemic. There are students who have not been in school for the last year and a half who will be impacted by this plan. My son Trevor has not been in school for 2 years. 7th grade, we was in for a month. We had a lot of bullying issues. His anxiety was through the roof, panic attacks, so forth. He was bedside tutoring. When we were finally getting him to be where he needed to be emotionally, which was my main concern, then he was ready to come back. We got hit with COVID. So again, he was out of school. 8th grade came, and then when schools were starting to reopen, because of the rotating with the schedule, blue team, gold team, in 2 days, in 3 days, was too much for Trevor. We were discussing it and felt that it would be better for him to stay home. On a positive note, we started talking about, well, you know what? We're putting this all behind. We're going to start September, freshmen. It's all new, brand new school. You'll have Monday through Friday. We'll be back. Hopefully that keeps going forward. Have a set schedule. 2 weeks before, I'm just finding out about this rotating schedule. And I did reach out to other parents with freshmen. No freshman parent had any idea. The only way is somebody read August 5th, I believe, was an email. And the email said August events. So of course you have busy, who's going away, who has older siblings, getting ready for college. You see the August events in that email. The majority is thinking, well, this has to do with August, nothing to do with school, so you're not going to read it. As I'm reading, just to find out if there was something in there, as you got to the bottom, all it said, high school rotating schedule, and that was it. So this is my concern. Today, we did go to the high school, and for Trevor to meet with his counselor, Mrs. McDougall, we went on a tour. All of that was very positive. And again, just talking about the rotating schedule, his anxiety was going through the roof. And as we were leaving, they wanted to know if he had any questions, if everything's okay. And I saw it on his face and I knew everything that they were presenting. He wound up meeting one of his teachers. He knows his math teacher who was a tutor for him, but that did not help. For right away, he said, I'm not happy. I have the rotating schedule. It's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to come to school. So before school even starts, I'm having these issues with him. So I hope that maybe you can understand my frustration on this matter, come up with a plan. And I thank you for your time, but this is why I waited to the end, because it's really important. And my main goal is to get my son back to school and have a positive effect and for him to be comfortable. And also in his IEP, it stated that too many transitions is very harmful for Trevor. And what, like I said, what may say that it may work for a lot of the students. I know science lab was a big issue with them missing. I know some students that came first period was really tired if they had math, that maybe by the 8th period, they weren't as tired. And that's great if that's going to help them. But again, it's not for all. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Felsey, Town Center. One of the other things that I noticed was not brought up at all with this moving 15 minutes is my second and third graders won't be getting off the bus until almost 5 p.m. Which I'm in this a little bit of a unique position where I have a high schooler, I have a freshman, incoming freshman, but I also still have primary school students. And while I would theoretically be thrilled about a slightly later start time for the high school students, because I do think that it is too early. My kids aren't going to be walking in the door until dinner time. And I mean, it was practically dusk by the time they were getting off in the midst of the winter last year. And now you're pushing it off another, 15, 20 minutes by the time they get off the bus. While I do agree with changing start times, I think the solution to this answer is the transportation. This 3 different start times for three separate sections of the school doesn't work. And I know that with the shortage of bus drivers kinds of runs into that issue as well. But next year, it's going to take me 3 hours, more than 3 hours to get my kids off to school in the morning. And then close to the same for them to all get home in the evenings. And I think that's a little excessive. I can't imagine if I was to work a full-time job, how I would handle that. At least from a parent perspective. And that was kind of just a bit of what the separating the public participation sections. I know I could have talked about this hours ago at this point, but I really do value the input to hear what's going to be said about it, and then that's kind of why I sat around for an obscene amount of time. But thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Zoe Heath, Highland Lake section of Vernon. I'll be brief. I first wanted to say thank you for starting to change your position on public participation. It's wonderful that Vernon live streams their meetings, let alone let people participate from home. There are areas of the county, both at the local and county level, where we're fighting to get them to even film their meetings. So that level of wanting to have input from the public is really, really good to see. And then the other thing I just wanted to address was, I don't think anybody envies anyone involved in schools right now, faculty, staff, school board members, because it is just a really tough time for everybody, but especially for our students. So just thank you all for the work you're doing, because we can tell it's tough. So thank you.
Thanks, Zoe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe.
Stayed this long and you're not going to say anything? Oh, okay. Okay. Anybody attending virtually who would like to comment, please raise your hand at this time. Okay, seeing none, we will close it to the public and open it to the board at open board member forum. It wasn't set to be on the agenda tonight, so I appreciate that Martin did raise his concerns about the public participation. That is something the board has brought up a few times in the past and there wasn't support at the time. I'm glad that, different members, and we've come around to a new position on that, because I think that the more accessible we are to public input, the better. So, thank you. Anything else for open board member forum?
I was at Glen Meadow this week for the orientation. I just want to recognize that it was a good participation by the community.
Sure was.
And the staff did a very great job, the administration, and we had a bunch of student helpers. So I just want to recognize them.
Thank you. Also, I'd like to point out, I saw today on newjersey.com, the high school football preview 2021, New Jersey's top offensive linemen and other top people movers. One of our seniors, a Vernon senior, is listed in this article. So congratulations, and it's great to see one of our own has made this list. I am biased, being married to a college football player who was a lineman, so I understand the toll it takes on their body, but the love of the sport, and it's great to see that our student is doing so well, and great to be represented. So thank you, and good luck to all of our upcoming fall sports, to all the coaches, students, athletes, and everybody involved.
Scrimmages start next week.
Do they? Yeah, they're so happy and healthy here. So.
Now, do they have to wear masks while they're playing yet? Is that a mandate yet or no? Just when they walk into the school?
It's covered
Once it's
under,
outside.
it's covered under strenuous activity or aerobic and aerobic activity.
Right.
exceptions.
It's interesting because that was always there, but yet we made our children wear masks last year.
No, if they were playing, they didn't have to wear them, but I think when they were on the sideline, they had to wear them in socially distanced.
My daughter played volleyball. She had to wear the mask. So did all the other teams. So
Last
that's
year was
why.
a blur.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm just, but I'm glad that they don't have to this year because they hate this.
Was volleyball outside? No.
No,
No,
So that's
no,
why.
it was in the gym.
Anything outside, you didn't need to wear this.
but
So-
now they don't have to wear it inside now, do they?
They clarified the strenuous.
They have to wear it
activity.
inside unless they are participating in strenuous. activity.
Okay, so they clarified
Yeah,
that.
they
That's
can
what I
take it
said.
off for phys ed.
Right.
Not knocking.
Okay.
Wish they would have worn.
Anything?
I'm
Anything
making
else
my
for
son
open
wear
board
his
member?
mask for hockey this year.
That was very.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Mitchell, second by Mr. O'Donnell. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay, we are.